Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday, April 21st, 2014, Jurupa Unified School District Board of Education meeting. We will start with roll call, please. Thank you. And Shaylee, would you lead us in the flag salute tonight, please?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Shaylee. Next, we'll move on to recognitions. We'll start with welcomes and do student board member reports. Mr. Duchan.
And thank you, Madam President, and welcome student board members. So I guess we won't ask Daisy to start. So Amanda, would you like to start, please?
Okay, so at Riverdale High School, we have prom this Friday, which is the 25th. It's at the Mitten Building in Redlands, and our theme is An Evening in Spain. Next Thursday on May 1st, we have a blood drive, and we have the Mr. Riverdale pageant, which is the male pageant for all the senior guys at our school. And on May 2nd is our spring rally. It's a student versus staff rally, and the theme is kind of like a Riverdale Skills Day like the elementary school kids do. So it'll be really fun to have that reminiscence of doing that when I was little. And we just had Club Food Week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and the clubs made a lot of money on that, so we're really happy that it was very successful. And for the first time in several years, boys tennis is going to make it to playoffs. And I want to recognize Javier Lopez, which is a very good friend of mine, and the ASB president, who is now part of the Castle board. And he's so excited because he's one of the first to do it in many, many, many years at Riverdale, and he's proud to support and be part of the Castle board. And lastly, we have the FFA State Convention was in Fresno, like it is every year. And Madison Dollarhide was a state finalist for the speaking contest. Allison Silvera won a second place state proficiency award for her wildlife management project. And our chapter website, which was designed by Joy Lyles, received a third place award for the Southern region. The scrapbook received a fourth place award for the Southern region. And the FFA chapter was one of the only 5 programs in the Southern region awarded the State Superior Chapter Award. And that's all we have for Riverdale.
Thank you. Shaylee, Patriot High School.
Thank you. We are busy, busy, busy at Patriot from now until the end of the school year. We are holding our 3rd blood drive of the year tomorrow at Patriot, and this event is open to the community, so we would encourage you all to come out and donate blood. We had our first annual Easter egg hunt at Patriot last Saturday, and it was a pretty good success for it being our first year of running this event. This Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be administering a very special presentation called Every 15 Minutes at Patriot High School, where we will be staging a drunk driving accident to make students at Patriot aware of the dangers of drinking and driving. The buzz is in the air for our prom this Friday. The theme is A Night in Paris, and it is held at the Hyatt in Huntington Beach, and it's sure to be a great time. We'll be holding our annual Sundown on Slavery benefit talent show against human trafficking on May 3rd. Class council elections are coming up for next year, and so for students interested in running for sophomore, junior, or senior class president, that will be coming up soon. Our spring talent show will be held on May 17th. Last week, our theater department put on a presentation of the play 12 Angry Women, and from what I heard, it was a really great success and one of their best shows of the year. Swim had an away meet today, and we're still waiting on results of that competition. And choir participated in the JUSD Choral Festival last Friday, which was a collaboration of the choir departments from Riverdale and Jurupa Valley and Patriot that was held at Jurupa Valley, and it was a great event. We were wishing all of our students good luck on their upcoming AP tests and finals. As we look forward to the end of the year and all the festivities, we encourage our students to stay focused at this important time of the year. And that's all we have for Patriot.
Thank you, ladies, for your reports. Next, we'll move on and recognize Best of the Best winners for the 2013-2014 Employee Recognition Program. Mrs. Roche.
Thank you, President Schmidt, board members, and Mr. Duchamp. It gives me great pleasure tonight to reintroduce our Best of the Best winners for the 2013-14 school year. And I'd ask anybody that, as I go through the names, if you're here tonight, if you could come up and join me, just like stand next to me. And when I'm all done, we're going to have Mrs. Johnston, who's a member of the committee, pick the winner of the Mission Inn gift certificate for $250. So here we go. Philip Chacon, custodian, Jurupa Middle School. Cheryl Schneider, clerk typist, Patriot High School. Blanca Diaz, teacher, Mission Middle. Beth Vandenrat, teacher, Glen Avon. Dan Brooks, principal, West Riverside. Amita Cloak, coordinator of special education, Education Center. Anson Fenderson, head custodian at Camino Real. Lilia Guillen, bilingual language tutor, Pedley. Bob McDowell, head custodian, Pedley. Debbie Burdick, nurse, Education Center. Kelly McCardle, teacher, Jurupa Valley. Denise Collins, senior executive assistant here at the Ed Center. Victoria Joe, principal, Indian Hills. Jenna Sogstad, high school assistant principal, Rivercrest. Robert Beglau, computer support tech, Education Center. Jeannie Klein, activity supervisor and instructional aide, Pedley. Roberta Hammersma, clerk typist at the training center. Amber Harold Toby, teacher, Mission Middle. Judy Pronovost, teacher, Pacific Avenue. Hector Sanchez, teacher, Pacific Avenue. Paula Ford, assistant superintendent of business services, Ed Center. Rosa Santos Lee, elementary principal at Stone Avenue, and Allison Teagarden, personnel secretary at the Ed Center. And so if we could just one more time give these people a great round of applause. And now I'm going to have Mrs. Johnson do the honors. And the winner is Victoria Jones, principal of Headley Elementary. And I'll make sure Victoria gets her gift certificate.
Thank you, Ms. Roche, and congratulations to each of you for winning Best of the Best this year. Next, we'll recognize Javier Lopez, Jurupa High School student. Mr. Dabrowski.
Thank you. Is Javier here tonight? No? Okay. Well, Javier Lopez from Rubidoux High School was recently elected to the California Association of Student Leaders, or CASEL, State Board. CASEL is the student organization for the California Association of Activity Directors. Javier will assist at the upcoming middle school CATA camp and attend each of the conferences throughout the 6 areas covered by the association. We're very proud to have Javier represent Rubidoux High School and the Jurupa School District.
Thank you, and congratulations to Javier. Next, we'll recognize receipt of the grant for from the California Retired Teachers Association. Mr. Dabrowski.
Thank you. The California Retired Teachers Association recently notified us that the Jurupa Valley High School Vocal Music Program has been awarded a grant in the amount of $1,000. These funds can be used for scholarships, purchasing music, festivals, transportation, upgrading the sound system, and other things. And a copy of the grant award notification is included in your supporting documents.
Thank you, and congratulations to Jurupa High and Mrs. Moore. Next, we'll recognize receipt of the Microsoft grant. Mrs. Ford.
Yes, several years ago, Microsoft settled a class action lawsuit which resulted in the K-12 voucher program. Through the program, eligible districts receive vouchers that they can use towards the purchase of software and hardware products. The district was recently notified of a final settlement with a distribution of $707,324.92 coming to the district. And this is a reimbursement program, and it can only be used for the purchase of pre-approved specific hardware and software. And this is informational only.
Thank you. And next, we will move to public verbal comment. And I want to remind everyone that each speaker tonight has a right to their own opinions, and neither board members nor staff will be responding to those opinions, and the district's silence should not be mistaken for agreement, but simply to avoid legal entanglements and/or to protect the privacy of situations that may involve lawsuits, employee discipline, or dismissal. And please be assured, any serious allegations have been or will be investigated thoroughly, and any responses from the board will take place during the board member comments at the end of tonight's meeting. And tonight's meeting is recorded, both video and audio, and each speaker will have 3 minutes to make their comments. And we'll start with Ms. Johnson.
Chairman and members of the board, I'm here representing Save Jurupa Valley Association, which is a grassroots organization of individuals that live here in Jurupa Valley that is doing its best to raise money and bring awareness to the fact that Jurupa Valley is going to go away if we don't get our money returned to us that the state so unfortunately took away just as we became a city in 2011. Recently, we had a meeting and we were brainstorming ways in which we could get the governor's attention, because we think that we have successfully gotten the attention of the state assembly and the state senate. Senator Roth has been amazing, but we don't feel that we have the governor's attention. And we brainstormed the idea that perhaps if we had the children of Jurupa Valley write letters to Sutter Brown. I don't know if you know who Sutter is. That is his corgi. Sutter has his own Facebook page. Sutter accepts mail. Sutter is a big guy in Sacramento. And we thought perhaps if Sutter suddenly started getting a lot of mail from the children of Jurupa Valley, that perhaps that might get the governor's attention. Our lobbyist thinks that's a good idea. Everyone thinks that's a good idea, so we're going to go forward with that. Save Jurupa Valley is willing to take on the cost of mailing any of these letters to Sacramento, and we're hoping we're going to start contacting teachers in the district to see if that's something that they would be interested in doing with their class. Of course, they're under no obligation to do so, but if they're interested in giving their children an interesting experience in government and contacting that cute little corgi. We just wanted to make you aware of it. We're happy, of course, if you want to be supportive of us in this endeavor. Just being supportive, we're not asking for anything else out of you, but we did want to bring that to your attention that we're going to be doing that. Switching hats. I'm here representing the Jurupa Valley Community Foundation. Jurupa Valley Community Foundation is an organization that's about a year old here in Jurupa Valley, and I think it says something about the maturity of our community that we have a community foundation. Mature places have community foundations, and we're having our very first event this Saturday at the Jurupa Hills Country Club. It's called Night on the Greens. There's going to be a live band, great food, going to be a really fun evening. We invite all of you to attend. The ticket price is only $30, and that gets you a great meal as well as the live band and a really fun night. And we welcome any of you who would like to come to that event, 6 p.m., Jurupa Valley. Thank you, or Jurupa Hills Country Club. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Rand Magnan.
Good evening, President Schmidt, board members, and Mr. Ducharme. My name is Rayanne Magnan, and I am NEAJ President. I stood before you several board meetings ago when our bargaining proposal was on the agenda to sunshine, and I stand before you tonight to let you know the current situation in NEA Jurupa. Our bargaining team and the district's team bargained in good faith, and our team left the table with what they felt was a good and fair settlement. The tentative agreement then went on to the general membership for ratification. We had a record turnout for voting, and the results are as follows. Out of approximately 889 active members, 529 voted. Out of the 529 votes, 235 were yes votes, but 293 were no votes. One ballot was deemed undetermined and was thus invalidated. The no vote prevails. Immediately after the vote, the bargaining team came together and formulated their plan with help from our UniServe staff. The team has visited sites and had meetings in our office in order to have as many face-to-face exchanges with our members as possible. We also put out a survey to all members to ascertain exactly what in the tentative agreement members do not like. The bargaining team will compile the survey results as well as what they learned from members during the visits. At that time, they will continue listening to members in a general membership meeting and share the results of the survey and site visits. That is when a discussion can occur, and the team will ask the membership what their main concerns about the TAR that they would like to see changed. The team will then continue negotiations. I want to be clear that it is my sincere desire and hope that an agreement can be reached prior to the end of the school year. I have mentioned before how amazing our members are. We have teachers, guidance coordinators and counselors, speech and language therapists, behavior and program specialists and mental health specialists, nurses and psychologists, and I hope I didn't leave out any groups. These members have worked extremely hard over the years, 7 of those without a pay increase due to the economy, and they continue to work hard and put in countless hours with the implementation of Common Core as well as other new expectations that came down this year. They deserve to leave for summer break having a final settlement in place and therefore the ability to truly enjoy the summer without the worry of coming back to start the new 2014-15 school year without a settlement. It is truly in the best interest of all of us to come to an agreement in an expeditious manner, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Magnan. Mr. Roughton, did you want to speak now or during item B?
During the item, please.
Thank you. Next is Diane Rose. Is Diane Rose here? Okay, thank you. Maynard Estrada?
Good evening, Board of Education. I'm here to speak about the bullying and mistreatment that's taking place at our local high school, Patriot High School, that's taking place between the coach, the varsity softball coach, and the players. I'm sure you probably heard about it by now. I'm not going to really go into everything that's being said, but I want to remind you as a Board of Education that this was brought up 3 years ago, and I want to remind everybody in this room that this was brought up 3 years ago, okay? Where I myself stood here 3 years ago and asked for something to be done about it. Now, since that time, there's been a lot more girls affected, okay, including another one of my daughters, okay? And I just don't understand how the higher-ups at Patriot High School, what I mean by higher-ups is a vice principal, principal, can let it get to this point. This has caused some serious drama at the schools. There's girls that don't even want to go to school right now because of all the controversy and drama this is bringing up. And I'm going to fully hold the Board of Education, I'm going to fully hold them accountable for any type of harm that my daughters might encounter. And I'm going to advise all the people who have been affected by this to do the same as well. My daughters have already withstood vulgar, mental, emotional abuse, and I'm not going to tolerate any physical abuse. So if something happens to one of my kids on the school campus, and they were to become physically harmed, I'm going to hold the Board of Education responsible, and I'm going to advise every parent to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Gabriela Estrada?
This is my sister, and I just wanted to stand up here with her. Is that okay? Hi, my name's Gabriela Estrada, and I quit the softball program at Patriot about a month and a half ago. I've been playing softball for 9 years of my life, and I love the sport. And I'm currently a freshman, and before I even got to Patriot, I was worried about what I would have to face with Coach Mason because of what I saw my sister go through the 3 years she was there, and I saw her come home crying. And during the summer tryouts, I would get comments from the upperclassmen, and they would say stuff like, well, get used to it because you have them for 4 years. And I felt intimidated by him too, because as I approached him about my concerns on how I can better my game, he told me throughout the conversation, he said, well, grab a tissue. I'm known to make little girls cry. And after he said this, I felt that I couldn't go to him with any more of my concerns that I had in the future, and it hurt me that he said that. And I will be leaving Patriot because I feel that I'm forced to leave Patriot because I want to play the sport that I love, and I don't think it's fair that I have to choose between going to a school where I have a lot of friends and I've grown up playing with these girls, and to choosing between that and choosing either that or the sport that I love to play in high school.
Thank you. Cynthia Amaya.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Maya. I'm a senior at Patriot High School, and I'm here to discuss my former coach, Dr. Mason. Mr. Mason has bullied, harassed, and belittled me. Mr. Mason has said things to me that are inappropriate. His comments are rude and degrading, and he sees nothing wrong with it. He has not changed the way he talks after it has been brought to his attention many times. About 2 years ago, there was a board meeting regarding his behavior towards the players. The next day during our 6th period softball class, he told us that he knows too many people in higher positions, and we can't get rid of him that easily. This statement made me feel like anytime I stand up against him, I will be shut down. A coach is a person you should be able to look up to. They are supposed to be a good role model. A coach should be encouraging, not belittling. I believe Mr. Mason is not the type of coach who encourages players. I'm not only speaking for myself, I am speaking for my fellow peers that are afraid of him retaliating for standing up for what they believe in. I have been told by teachers this issue will not properly be handled until he physically hurts someone or someone harms themselves. I strongly believe this issue needs to be handled before it gets that far. Thank you.
Riley and Sierra Allen.
I am in ASB. I am the elections commissioner, and I'm very involved in school. I'm a straight A student, top 10. I have also experienced the bullying and harassment from Dr. Mason. I have a few examples from my personal experience. The first time I pitched for him at my freshman year, in front of the other pitchers, I threw, and then he told the other girls, oh, well, you guys all have natural talent, but Riley, I think you need to work a little bit more. So basically he told me I had no natural talent compared to the other girls. Another situation was just recently. I threw 2 games in the beginning. I pitched 2 games in the beginning of the season, and both games were shutouts. The other teams did not score on me. The next game I pitched, I had a rough game. I had a bad day. The next day, he told me that the other pitcher, senior, would be starting the majority of the games because she deserves to go for the all-league title, and she was better than me now because I messed up one game. That's not fair. Another situation was after an optional practice, which I attended and put my utmost efforts into. I stayed afterwards and I did some extra practice so I could get better. He stayed and watched, which was fine with me. I had no problem with that. And halfway through my practice session, he started yelling. There was nobody else around. It was me, my sister. She was catching me, and he started yelling. He said I had no control whatsoever. He started comparing me to professional baseball players, which, mind you, is a whole other sport. And he basically told me that I had no potential to start in CIF or to do well throughout the season because I had no control and I basically had no potential to keep moving forward because of that when I was there doing extra work after practice. That doesn't make sense. I've been playing since I was 5, and I've been pitching since I was 10. I know how to play the game. I'll take criticism. I'll even take a coach yelling at me, but the way he degrades me, it's not okay. I'd like to let my sister speak now.
Can you state what your name is so that we know for the
Riley
record?
Allen.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah Allen. I'm also in ASB. I'm the Commissioner of Assemblies. I'm also a very good student. I'm a catcher on the varsity Patriot softball team. And a few weeks ago, I was catching her in bullpen, and he told me that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I work, there will always be somebody with more talent that is better than me, and there's nothing I'll ever be able to do about it. He constantly talks to people like that. He gives us negative comments, and there's hardly any positive comeback whatsoever, and he just tears us down. I went home crying Thursday night because he told me that I would never add up to what he wants in a catcher, and that's it. Today, after school, or in 6th period, they asked all the softball girls to come into the softball room, and Mr. Milosavljevic, Mr. Mariznik, and Dr. Mason were there, and they asked Dr. Mason to leave the room, and they asked us to fill out surveys, and which I was happy to do, and everyone did it. And I was there about 10 minutes after because I was still filling out the survey. At that point, it was Dr. Mason, Mr. Milosavljevic, and Mr. Mariznik. As I was leaving, they asked me if I wanted to know about my punishment now or later, and I asked what my punishment was for. They said that because I appeared on the news that degraded him and showed the world what he does, and I didn't say anything in the news, and I wasn't at the meeting where they talked to Mr. Mariznik Friday afternoon, but they said because I appeared on the news that it was voted that I should no longer be on the team because I was clearly against the team and I had no place being a team player, so I should not be on the team anymore. He further went to say that I have the decision of what my punishment should be. And he made it very clear that the coaches voted, as well as our seniors, that I should no longer be on the team. So at that point, I left and said that I had no passion left for the game because of the way he coaches and the way he degrades people, and I quit the team. And no coach should ever push a player to the point where they have no passion left for playing at the game that they love since they were 5 years old because he doesn't know how to properly coach. Thank you. Well,
Thank you. Cassandra Estrada?
Hi, my name is Cassandra Estrada. I'm a senior at Patriot High School, and I also quit the varsity team about a month and a half ago. I've played since I was 7 years old, and I love the sport. It's always really fun for me to get out there and play. And I felt compelled to quit playing the sport that I love in high school because he constantly broke my spirit along with other girls' spirit, and there comes a time where it's not worth it anymore. I've already submitted a letter to the board and a formal complaint to my school, but I'm just here to give you guys a summary of why I am complaining. I've seen Mr. Mason go against his rules that he's put forth in his handbook for some girls and not for others. And myself and other girls are made to feel uncomfortable by the way he gets into our personal space. He often gets 2 to 5 inches from our face, and we can smell his breath, and you can feel the spit on your face, and he towers over us. And it doesn't make me feel, it makes me feel violated. He makes degrading comments towards girls. Sometimes they're not even relevant to anything. They're not to motivate us or lift us up, but they make us feel embarrassed in front of our peers, and they make us feel like less of a person, of less worth. One of the last things he said to me one of the last embarrassing things that he said to me personally before I quit the team was when we were having a captain's meeting with the 4 seniors, and he told me, he excused myself and another senior to say, okay, now you guys can go, let's talk to the real captains now, when we're all supposed to have the title of a captain, and then he wants to degrade us to say, let's talk to the real captains while we excuse the other girls. And this made me feel embarrassed, and it made me feel, what was the purpose of him saying that? What's the purpose of giving me the title, a captain, when you can just don't give me the title in the first place? Rude and condescending comments like this is what makes it hard to play in the Patriot High School softball program and actually enjoy it. I stayed playing for the 3 years because I love playing the sport, and I wanted to get to play my last season with my sister, but there comes a time where it's just not worth being broken down daily. The experiences that I've had in the last 3.5 years, I don't wish them on anyone, and I'm speaking up because I know what it's like to be the girl on I know what it's like when you're on the team and he continues to bring you down. And I'm speaking up for the girls who are still on the team, and I'm speaking up for my sister who's already had to experience this, and I'm speaking up for future players that'll be coming up into the school program that have no idea what's even gonna come to them. And I'm speaking up for my 4 other sisters that might have to play underneath him if they go to that school and he's still the coach. Okay. I have something written for me because other girls who are not on the team don't want to be retaliated against. Can I read that? Yeah, I'm just reading it. I haven't read it yet. It says, I'm here to speak on behalf of my fellow teammates who are afraid to speak up because of the fact we would be criticized and most likely cut from the team. I expected to be treated the same as my peers, but was not. I am not here complaining about playing time because I do start. But I have, on many accounts, have witnessed my friends being called embarrassing things and told them they will never be better or good enough. I also feel Dr. Mason plays favorites. I have been told by others he prefers people who are there 24/7. However, whenever you decide to dedicate your life to playing in college, you go to lesson and go to travel ball 24/7, which makes it almost impossible to be there all summer, fall, winter, and spring. Whenever spoken to, sometimes I feel spoken down upon, and he tends to invade my personal space and get within about 4 inches of my face. I don't feel as if the softball season needs to end, but I feel something about Doc does need to change. I feel like for once in my high school career, I need a coach I can look up to and trust.
Thank you. Rose Estrada.
Hi, my name is Rose Estrada. My daughter, she said she submitted it. I have not submitted it yet, so it will be to you guys soon. But I'm just going to read what I have because I'll lose focus. The name softball is not a soft sport by any means. These girls can take constructive criticism. It's acceptable and even expected so that they can better their skills. What is not acceptable, what should never be tolerated is daily belittling, embarrassment, and bullying from a person in charge who was supposed to be there to guide and support these girls in a healthy manner. What is even more cause for concern is that this man seems to enjoy it. It feels secure that there will be no repercussions, to the point where he has verbally stated, "I know too many people. You can't get rid of me." It will speak volumes about what kind of politic our district has chosen to participate if nothing is done. This man is not removed from his position of influence over these teenage girls. It will show the parents of this district that our children's well-being is not important as it faces the public eye despite the consequences to our daughter's mental well-being. What is it going to take to open the administrators' eyes? My daughter, her junior year was her most challenging year. She'd come home crying pretty much after every practice. The state that she was in concerned me very much. I feel that since I'm a stay-home mom, I was able to pick up the pieces where Mason just tore her apart time and time over. And I feel that if another student that didn't have their mom at home and had the support, I would be fearful to what would have happened to her. So again, what is it going to take for everybody to open their eyes and see the way they are being bullied and mistreated? Last week, Friday, 15 softball players decided to stand up for themselves and wanted to ask to write a statement, either of them being bullied or witnessed their peers being bullied by Mr. Mason. I was told that I was not... I told the players that they would not be alone because I would choose to be there with them. I went. I was not able to be there with them. They kept me downstairs while they had them upstairs, telling them different things. I have audio of that, and I know I probably can't share that with you, but in that audio, I could hear the fear in their voices. Is Doc gonna know about this? Is this going to be taken care of before sixth period? Because I don't want to be in trouble. And then you can hear the girls say it's not fear of being hit, not fear of being hurt. It's being fear of mental abuse, the mental abuse that has been going on for years. Okay. Oh, and then, okay, so I've gone to Miss Pace, I've gone several times to the administration at the high school. And then when I've gone to go get copies of it, she has no copies of documentation of anything that I have said. Is that the way school policy is supposed to be? Is that the way things are ran at the high school, where nothing's documented? When girls are crying, when parents go and complain about the bulliness and the safety of their kids, why was that not documented? What is the policy on speaking to minors? Is it minors and 3 men? A minor, one girl, and 3 men talking to them and basically intimidating. I mean, that would be pretty intimidating with me if I was there. And I'm a lot older than 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. What is the concern when a player feels that they're not being safe? What's the policy? How do they handle that? I don't feel that they're being handled fairly. These girls are fearful. These girls are asking for your help. And I really hope that you really take this into consideration. Also, I'd like to add, a lot of people are worried about speaking here because of the repercussions that will be taking place. I'd like to show you a hands that people that are here in agreement with what everybody here is speaking to you about. Can I get you guys to raise your hands? There's plenty of people here that are concerned about what's going on with the program. I really hope that you guys would take that into consideration.
Thank you. Robin Steele.
Hello, group of board members. As you all know, I've been here at this same podium 2 years ago requesting you guys do something about Coach Mason. I gave you all the documentation that he accused my daughter of being on drugs. Nothing was done, nothing. You guys, I don't know, he tells the players that he's higher than almighty, nothing's gonna be done with him, and it shows. Nothing's done. All these parents and these kids that are crying their eyes out, they would not be here today if you guys would have done something 2 years ago. And that's kind of sad. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Shannon Allen.
My name is Shannon Allen. I am a parent of Cheyenne, Riley, and Sierra Allen. This is very emotional for me as well. I have endured this torture to my daughters indirectly, starting with Cheyenne in 2010 and 2011. I did not know what to make of this. I called it mental torture. I called it mental boot camp. I had to put my daughter's spirit together every time she came off of that field with Dr. Mason. I reported this incident to Ms. Sewell, who was the vice principal at the time. I've later found out from Ms. Pace that there was no documentation of this. I have attended your district meeting when Sandra Beyer, Danielle's mom, the Estredas, they presented their complaints about Dr. Mason. Once again, crushing self-esteem and confidence. Last year, my 2 daughters, Riley and Sierra, who you saw earlier, were ready to play softball at Patriot High School. We considered other schools because of Dr. Mason. Our job as parents is to protect them from harm. We wondered why Dr. Mason was still coaching after the complaints that were filed at district level. My daughters insisted that they wanted to play with their peers they have grown up with and remain at Patriot High School. We tried to prepare them mentally for what was to come. On January 9th, 2014, Dr. Mason's mental manipulation came to a head. My daughters filed a complaint with Ms. Pace for reporting verbal abuse. While practicing alone at PHS, as you heard earlier, he was critiquing my daughters in an inappropriate manner. He managed to crush my 2 daughters' self-esteem once again. When I arrived to Ms. Pace's office, Dr. Mason appeared. We had a discussion about what had happened. He admitted to being harsh to his own daughters and was corrected by his wife in Ms. Pace's presence. He also said that it is sometimes necessary to break down self-esteem. He said there's always that one parent every year. I wish there was something on videotape of whatever I'm doing. I responded, if I could put a finger on this, if I could figure out what's going on, I would have reported you a long time ago. All I know is that Cheyenne's self-esteem was destroyed by you and now my twin daughters. You are bullying my family, and this cycle has to stop. This was in January. Following this discussion, an arrangement had been made to have a female staff in attendance when Dr. Mason needs to speak to them alone. That did not happen today when Sierra was alone with the 3 male administrators. They did not follow through with their promise to protect my daughters. Dr. Mason improved his behavior initially for a very short time in January. Then 3 other varsity players left the team for similar reasons and treatment. Deconstructive criticism and crushing self-esteem and confidence. How is this an acceptable behavior of a coach and an educator? It is common knowledge that a school should nurture a safe learning environment where we can trust you to build their confidence and to play to their best ability. There are those that complain that we should leave this alone because we are winning, but at whose expense? Why do we have to continue to subject our daughters to this kind of treatment? This is not an isolated incident. This is not a new complaint. This had been occurring since 2010. My husband and I are tired of picking up the pieces after everything. Every time this happens, Dr. Mason damages our girls' self-esteem and confidence. We have asked the girls to leave the team to protect them from harm because that is our job as parents. Until today, they had firmly decided that they will not quit because this is a sport that they love and will not give up. That is why we are here today. Our girls do not deserve to be subjected to the harm of Dr. Mason. This is a hostile environment, and you as a district have a responsibility to take action immediately. All we want is our daughters to be successful, and we want to trust you to provide a learning environment that is safe and protect the well-being of our daughters. No other players now or future should have to be subjected to this mental harm. This is not an illusion. We as a family have suffered enough. He has caused enough pain. I am feeling pain. My daughters are feeling pain. You need to stop it now. You need to do your job. We have been advised by your administrator that we should do what is best for our girls and our family, implying that we should leave the team, and I have a copy of that email. My daughters were advised that the softball team will fold if Dr. Mason steps down. That is clearly not the solution, and if you do take such action, we can only suspect that you are here for the best interest of the coach and not our girls. If that's the case, then we will hold all of you here today accountable, and we will take the next step to stop this man. Thank you.
Madam President, I just have a clarifying question, Madam. She said she received an email from an administrator. Could we know who that administrator was? I have a copy for you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Beyer.
Good evening, Jurupa Unified Board District members and guests. My name is Sandra Beyer. I have a daughter that graduated Patriot High School last year. I am the Sandra Beyer that some of the parents spoke of, that I was here in 2012 addressing the board on some concerns I had with the way my daughter was spoke to by Mr. Mason, the berating comments, the humiliation in front of the entire team, telling her things like, you'll never be good enough, you'll never pitch fast enough, you'll never basically you'll never, et cetera, you can fill in the blanks. She chose today to not join me because she didn't want to relive this again. As you can imagine, her junior and senior years were quite difficult. After I spoke here last year, March 2012, she was cut from the team, just like Sierra Allen. I'm here regarding the bullying of the softball players by their coach. I don't know another word to describe it. I attended a meeting Friday where the athletic director, Mr. Mariznik, didn't care for that word. He didn't care that I used that word. He thought that I was just using that word to fit the situation. And I said, then what else should I say? What else should I call it? If you look at the definition of bullying, that's exactly what's happening to these girls. It doesn't matter that it's not student to student. It's a teacher, an educator, a coach to student. It's still bullying. It doesn't matter that it's an adult doing it. At the meeting on Friday, the 18th, with Mrs. Allen, Mrs. Estrada, and Mrs. Pace, Mr. Mariznik and Mr., I don't know how to say his name, Mr. M, he's the Assistant Vice Principal over Athletics. During the meeting, Mrs. Pace advised us that she didn't want to hear anything that she had already heard, that history didn't matter, that she only wanted new information. Well, I'm here to tell you that history absolutely matters, that this is something that's been going on for a long time. And it hasn't been handled yet. It wasn't handled in 2012. It wasn't handled in 2013, and it needs to be handled in 2014. I'm here today to ask you, as a board, to advise me and the rest of the Patriot High School softball program and parents what the policy is for coaching. I asked in 2012, and I was told, I believe the comments are made before anybody speaks, that you don't respond when speakers come up, and that somebody would be getting to us and address our concerns. And I never received a phone call. None of my concerns were addressed. I had asked then what the policy was for coaches and whether or not Coach Mason was adhering and conforming to this policy. I also asked if there was no policy in place, if maybe it was necessary to develop a policy. I think we first need to identify the problem, which I think in this case we've clearly identified as bullying, and we need to help develop a resolution that's acceptable by all parties. I think we need the students to feel protected and comfortable, and this policy should also adhere to the CIF standards of coaching. I have a quote here by Mr. Jack O'Connell, the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and I think it summarizes everything everyone has said regarding Mr. Mason best. That what he's doing perhaps is not the right thing. It says, "We now understand that all students can succeed if they believe they are valued and supported at school and in their communities." So if we want our students to succeed, if we want our softball players to go on and play the game they love, then they need to be valued. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking for help to develop a policy if there's not one in place. I'm asking for answers if there is a policy in place as to what is happening. I understand that you can't tell us what disciplinary action has been taken because of teacher privacy, and I completely understand that. But whatever actions have been taken so far don't seem to be doing the job, or we wouldn't all still be here 2 years after the fact. This is the third softball season that this has been going on with Mr. Mason. So and all the hands you saw before you are looking for answers. And if this is not where we look for them, then advise us as to where we do look for them, because we're running out of options. You know, you've got parents concerned that their girls are going to take their own lives because you can only be told you suck long enough and often enough before you start buying into it. And I don't think these are things that our coaches should be telling these young women. You know, their ages 14 to 17, some of them are 18, but this is when they should be put on pedestals. You can be anything you want to be. What happened to that? You can achieve any goal you set your mind to. Where's that motivation? Telling players they suck, which was told to a player on a Friday afternoon at practice, where her parents came and joined her after the end of practice to talk to the coach because they wanted to address it, that they didn't feel that this was proper verbiage to talk to their child. That's the question. Is this proper verbiage to talk to our children? Is it okay that this man is telling us that they suck, that they'll never amount to anything? I don't think so, and neither do any of the parents here tonight. So I'm asking you, please get back to me, get back to the parents here, educate us on what the policy is. If there is no policy in place, help us to write one. Thank you.
Leslie Espinosa.
Is it okay if I stand up here? Okay. You're fine. Okay.
Well, I'm here because Dr. Mason, okay, he has verbally abused us girls many times. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, one time we were practicing. It was during like summer tryouts, and he was picking on one of the teammates. And I didn't think it was right, so I stood up for her. And I was like, I stood up for her, and he didn't like it, so he punished me. You know, he made me run another lap. No biggie. I was just like, okay. But the way he talked to me and the way he said, oh, like, you're being very disrespectful towards me. You are being unsportsmanship like. And I just like thought to myself, why are you telling me this? You're picking on her. You're making her feel down. And it's usually, he was picking on her because of her weight, because she's not fast enough. And I don't know why else he picked on her, but I know that's two of the reasons why. So, and then afterwards, when that happened, we were practicing, and then I was doing what I had to do. I was doing the drills. I was doing everything he wanted me to do. And then he just kicked me off the field because he was just upset with me. So he kicked me off the field, and then I went home upset to my father, talking to him. And then it just made me think, like, what did I do wrong? Like, I'm sticking up for someone that he's picking on or he's being mean with. So it just made me think, like, did I really do something wrong? And then I had talked to my dad, and my dad was like, you did the right thing. You stood up for her. And, you know, I know she's thankful for that, and she was, but it just made me think, like, did I really do something wrong? Like, and that's what I have to say. But, and also, on behalf of another girl who is scared to speak at the board meeting because they do not want to be retaliated against. Dr. Mason had told the girl, you suck, you will never see the infield. And that's all I have to say.
Sylvia Hoquin.
I wasn't prepared for this outpour at a board meeting. Usually there's 20 if we're lucky. I was at that board meeting in 2010 when those two parents went up there and spoke about Mason and the things that he did to their daughters. And evidently nothing was done about it because he's still here. He was also at the board meeting where you guys chose to discipline the football coach that you said you wouldn't allow hazing. Well, what is it that Mason's doing to these girls? Because I don't know these parents, but I know I've had subs that have said the same thing about this man. I know him personally. I don't think much of him anyway. But that's my personal feeling. But what these children have come up to you, it's very frightening for kids to come up here and speak. And the fact that they had the courage to do it, even though they've been threatened, should open your ears and open your heart. We are all here because of these kids. All of us have our jobs because of these kids. And if you are not protecting the kids, they will find somebody that will. And it's not going to make this board look good. This is your administrator that you brag about all the time, that he gets paid such little money, that he does such a great job. How good of a job is he doing that kids had to come and speak today? Another thing is there's many teachers here for their raise. We, as classified employees, were told they came to an agreement, which they didn't. I don't know what amount you're offering the teachers, but the fact that we have not gotten a raise in 7.5 years is outrageous. The fact that this man has gotten a raise year after year after year is just baffling. It's criminal. It's criminal that this administration gets their raises. We don't even get the cost of living. These are the people that are in the classroom with the kids, not these administrators. These are the people that train them and teach them and study with them for their tests to pass. You brag about all these sites getting high grades, but you praise him. That makes absolutely no sense. The people that should be getting bonuses, the people that should be getting praise, The people that you should look up to are these teachers in this district because they give their heart. I have worked at several sites where teachers are like family. Elliot told me once, oh, your teachers? That's right, they're my teachers. And you know what? They are worthy of much more respect than this board has showed them. Because they could come to you with their recommendations, but you follow them.
Ms. Holguin, you have 30 seconds left, please.
And that is another crime there. That these kids were talking about things that have, and they're being timed? Are you serious? All it takes is one board member to have the courage to say no. Let them continue to speak, and they can. But I guess there isn't none of that here, right? Look at yourselves. Look at this administration, because the administration you see is not the one we see. When we get a leader that tells us, I will not take a raise until the people under me that actually do the work get one, then we'll stop coming. Up until the time that you decide to show certificated and classified employees the respect that they deserve. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher or if you're a night custodian. You deserve respect just the same. Not because he's a superintendent, not because she's the assistant superintendent or anybody else. You want respect, you darn well better be willing to give it. And you guys need to open your eyes. Elections coming up pretty soon, and the people that do nothing about this teacher that is abusing, it is abusing, because I've told you, there are administrators here that have bullied their employees, that have harassed their employees, that have made the workplace a hostile environment for their employees, and you've done nothing about that. Now we are talking about kids that we are supposed to protect, kids that we're supposed to be willing to give our life to protect, and you can't do that. You got rid of the football coach. Get rid of Mason, because it's 4 years now. They have been complaining about this man. You are clearly not doing what you were elected to do. And you know what, before you guys leave, you should thank God you have the teachers and the classified employees you got.
Yes. Yeah. Just wanted to make a comment that as a timer, as a clerk, I did not stop every single student. I let them go on well past their time in many instances. I did want to hear them, and it is a difficult topic for them to address to us as a board. And definitely I didn't abide by the time frame that we normally do for all speakers. So just wanted to let you know that we are sensitive to the students and to their parents. Thank you.
Next, we will move on to administrative reports and written communications, and begin with the report on transition to Common Core state standards and the local control funding formula. Mr. Jabrowski.
Thank you. Just a few brief comments. I wanted to let you know that on Wednesday, our guidance counselors, coordinators, our assistant principals, and select teacher leaders from our high schools will be coming together at the PDC to analyze transcripts from last year's graduating class in what we call an A through G audit. And we'll be looking at students who completed the A through G requirements and were eligible for universities, state universities, and those that didn't, and trying to determine what got in the way for those students who are unable to complete those and what we can do about it as a district. And those are my comments today.
Thank you. And next will be the report on Rubidoux High School and Rivercrest Preparatory School WASC visits. Mr. Jabrowski.
Thank you. We had a couple of WASC visits in the recent past. One was at Rubidoux High School, and it was their midterm visit, so it was a one-day visit, and they were validated in the work that has gone on since the full WASC report 3 years ago. And I was on campus briefly, and the reviewers had very positive things to say about what was going on at Rubidoux. Also, Rivercrest had its initial visit, as you heard from Mrs. Sogstad at our last board meeting, and that initial accreditation for the school is incoming, and we should have that accreditation in the next few weeks, so we're very excited about that.
Thank you. And next we'll move on to a report on the mental health program. Mr. Jabrowski, it's your night tonight.
Thank you. One of the areas in which we've made great strides in recent history is in the area of providing mental health services for our students. And tonight, Ms. Michelle Johnson and Ms. Amita Cloak are here to talk with you about those things that are happening. They've worked very hard to improve the services available for our kids at schools, and we're going to give you a little overview of what services are in place. And they're going to do that as soon as the projector is ready.
Good evening. Well, I am delighted to be able to share this with you today because it's a program that we have been very excited about bringing to the district. 2 years ago, Assembly Bill 114 significantly changed the way mental health is handled for special education students. And basically what happened is instead of the money being directly sent to the Department of Mental Health with the expectation that the Department of Mental Health would work with the district, the money came to the district. And the district became responsible for all special ed counseling services that are mandated under the IDEA. Basically what the law said is we had to minimize the disruptions, but we had also some opportunities to make some determinations about how mental health is going to be handled in our district. And then we also became responsible for all aspects of care, which includes residential care, which typically is done in out-of-state lockdown facilities for students who are deemed to be highly dangerous and that really cannot be allowed to be in California's institutions that don't have the lockdown facility. So we had the option of continuing to contract with the Department of Mental Health, and in the previous year, I looked back and looked at the kids that the Department of Mental Health had accepted, and only maybe 10 kids from our district qualified under all of the guidelines that they had. So that meant the Department of Mental Health was getting a lot of money on behalf of our district, but we were not having very many kids who were being served. So we decided that we wanted to go a different way, and we wanted to look at our school psychologists. So I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about how we arrived at that decision. What you might not know is that school psychologists require the most education in order to earn their credential. And they their role is to help us overcome learning and behavior disorders, to work with community agencies that may be serving kids, and also they're trained at providing psychological counseling and therapeutic techniques. They have an expertise in knowing how the child's mental health needs interact with the child's educational needs. And what special ed is charged with is providing mental health that supports children's ability to learn in school. One of the advantages of having our school psychologists provide our mental health is that they're familiar with special education. They understand the parts of the IEP. They understand that our focus in the school setting is to focus on the aspects of mental health that relate to the child's ability to learn. So currently, our staffing pattern is that we have one school psychologist for every 2 elementary schools. At the middle school, 1 psychologist at each school. And at the high school, because of the huge number of kids, there's a psychologist who handles the special ed assessments, and then there's also a mental health counselor who's also a psychologist, but who's primarily responsible for the mental health needs of the students. Any students who move to alternative settings like the Learning Center or the continuation school, the psychologist from their school follows them. So there's always someone who is familiar with that child's history, who really understands what the child needs, that's working with them. They have a lot of responsibilities. And where previously they were primarily responsible for assessment and helping us determine which kids qualified for special education and how we could work with kids in those various programs, They've now added on those counseling and pre-counseling opportunities, but because they have fewer schools, they have time that they're able to do that. And they've done a phenomenal job. So in order to provide them with some support, we identified, with the help from all of our special ed staff, some programs that we thought really were research-based programs that provided kids with a lot of the needs that they had. One of them was skill streaming. And skill streaming is really a nice program. It's used in a variety of settings on our school campuses. But basically, it follows a protocol where we have modeling, we have role-playing. The student gets feedback on how well they're doing the skill that they're practicing, and then we work on generalization. So for example, a psychologist might be working with a student on a specific skill, and once they're at that generalization point, an activity supervisor on the playground is now going to be coached in what they need to do to help that child generalize being able to use that skill on the playground. Another program that we use that we've had good success with is the Y Try program. And the Y Try program really focuses on providing kids with these really interesting visual analogies. And the idea here is that, you know, you can take the easy way, but there's a much bigger chance that you're going to crash and burn. And by making difficult decisions, you have a lot more opportunities. It opens up a lot of things for you. And there are a lot of activities that go along with these, but it really helps kids to start to understand why we take the more difficult path. Boys Town has been one of the biggest areas that we focused. Ilsa Garza Gonzalez, Anita Cloak, and myself are trainers for our district. And I think before the start of school next year, we figure we will have trained about 300 staff. And it's not just teachers, it's cafeteria supervisors, bus drivers, activity supervisors, because what we really want to do is to help people start to develop a culture that supports kids. And Boys Town has 4 basic parts. Number 1, it talks about teaching kids social skills and actually actively teaching them. It helps teachers know how to interact with kids. It also helps administrators know how to interact, and there's a whole motivational system. So I wanted to share with you a sample of a Boys Town skill. So this is an intermediate skill. It wouldn't be something we'd work with our youngest kids on likely, but it's a skill that many of our older kids need. Resisting peer pressure. And so what it does is it really outlines, these are the steps that you do to resist peer pressure. You look at the person, you use a calm, assertive voice tone, you state clearly that you do not want to engage in the inappropriate activity, and then you suggest an alternative activity and give a reason why you want to do that activity. If the person persists, you continue to say no, and if they won't accept your no, you ask them to leave or you leave yourself. And so what happens is, in the early stages, someone is working with the child on really learning these steps and practicing it. But then we want to have a situation where people throughout the school are really encouraging kids to gather these social skills. The last program that we've used, kind of a K-12, is called Strong Kids. And Strong Kids is another curriculum based on evidence things, but it really looks at helping kids understand the link between the way they feel and the way they think and behave, and to try and make that connection that sometimes you can feel one way, but you don't automatically go to a particular behavior, that you want to really make that connection between, if I'm feeling this way, there's some strategies that I can use. Now, all of the things that I've talked about are really focused on special ed because that's what the state provides us the money to do. However, I have to say that Amita Cloak, our coordinator of special ed, has done a phenomenal job of bringing other resources into the district that are available to any students. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Last year, well, thank you first for having me here so I could share a little bit about some of the programs that we have that are working at our school sites. Last year, we came up with the acronym JEEP, to stand for Jurupa Educational Assistance Programs. And basically, GEEK programs are all of the programs within our community that are provided by nonprofit or grant-funded programs. And the programs use a variety of evidence-based curriculums, some of which Michelle talked about that our psychologists are also using. And they're all nationally recognized programs that are approved by CDE. And so we're really happy to have a lot of these programs here in Jurupa. They're all free to both general and special ed students. One of the programs that was really beneficial for us to have was called Educate, Equip, and Support. And we had it at two of our elementaries this year, and it was presented by the Riverside County Department of Mental Health. They have a grant to provide this program, and it consists of 10 to 12 2-hour sessions offered to parents that are raising children that have unique needs with emotional challenges, and it provides education on mental health illnesses and parent support and community resources. The classes first started at Pacific Avenue in August this year, and what was great is the parents that got together and met, they have that direct link with Riverside County Mental Health because the staff that are facilitating this class are from mental health. And so when parents have a specific concern about not being able to get an appointment, or, you know, is this something I should take my child to go see a therapist or a doctor, they have somebody from the facility that could say, let me help you. This is what we have. And it's not just this class that they attended, but they also got linked to classes that were happening in the area to continue that parent support. The topics that they discuss in this program, it's based on a curriculum that's called Building Hope. And they talk about everything from coping with grief, brain development, medication, depression, anxiety, attention deficit disorder, bipolar, schizophrenia, eating disorders, education on mental health treatments in general. They talk about special education, child welfare, and probation. So it not only helps maybe with the student that they were concerned about, but it helps also with their entire family. So it was definitely a success, and we've had parents call wanting that program to continue. What's great about bringing in Riverside County Mental Health is if the program is completed, there are several other schools in our area, surrounding districts or at Riverside County Mental Health, that the parent can get into a class right away, and they provide them in Spanish and English. Another program that we have is Morning Star Center. It's a center that actually is located in Riverside, and it's a grief center, and we've been really fortunate to have Morning Star come into our district. So when we know of students that are struggling with grief or families, we're able to link them to the center. This year, they actually came in and did grief groups at Jurupa Valley High School, Patriot High School, and Stone Avenue High School. And once we had a need, and I would get phone calls or talk with principals or psychologists or mental health counselors or guidance counselors or teachers, and we realized there's a need at certain schools, that's how we decided to where to put the groups. And I have to say, they do a phenomenal job, and many of our students at the high school, when they completed their grief sessions, they actually are participating at the center with their parents and their other siblings. So it's definitely been a really good program for us to have. It's completely free. And although they weren't doing groups at other schools, if we had a situation where there's a grief or a loss, a sudden event that happens that's traumatizing for a family, they've actually gone out to the homes, and they've done that upon our request for free and really helped the family cope with loss. CBITS, which stands for Cognitive Behavioral Intervention for Trauma in the Schools. This is a program that Catholic Charities actually was receiving the grant to provide this service within our area. We did have this program before in the past, but on a smaller level where they had previously maybe, I think it might have been 7 students that participated. We found out that Catholic Charities actually was trained in this, so they were able to get a grant that was servicing all of our middle schools.
And you don't have to be Catholic, it has nothing to do with
Right, and one of the things, all the grants that happen in the area, a lot of the therapists are from Riverside County Mental Health, Catholic Charities is a big organization in our area, and the therapists are non-denominational. It has nothing, it's not faith-based in terms of the curriculum that they use. They actually have to follow what the CBITS training is, which is a national, it's a national program that actually has a certain curriculum, and the sessions are all follow a certain format. There are 10 one-hour sessions with 6 to 8 students in each group. And also one of the things they provide, which is great, is they do additional sessions with the individual student, with teachers to help teachers understand the student and what the student is going through, and parent sessions, which was really a great thing to have. They have bilingual staff, bilingual therapists as well, so that was beneficial for our families. The program reduces emotional and behavioral problems and assists in developing healthy prosocial relationships with adults and peers. CBITS is for any student who may have experienced community violence, school violence, could be a divorce, medical trauma, abuse, fatal loss, or natural disaster. So the actual qualification is very broad. They do school-wide screenings with parent consent, of course. And like I said, we had them at all 3 of the elementary schools. In Jurupa Middle, they actually screened 966 parents had sent back the consent wanting the screening. And what I want to share, which was really beneficial to our families, is although 51 students met the criteria to participate in the program, they actually, with all 966 kiddos, they went through, and if there's any other concerns that families had or students had, they linked them to other programs all over the area. And a lot of the information is confidential, but they were able to screen out if there was concerns. When we were talking about 51 students to participate in this intense intervention, we also had students that maybe had lesser, maybe not as severe problems, and they were able to link them to services, as well as students who actually had quite a bit of concern, and they may not have been able to participate in a group type of activity at school, and so they needed something more intensive. And they were able to sit down with families and link them to really the services that they needed. So when we think about the 51 students that actually participated and completed the program, we had so many other students and families that benefited from having CBITS as a part of our district. And they're actually expanding their grant, and we're hoping that they come back next year as well. Another program that we...
Yeah, I ask a question before you go on. This CBITS program, how is that getting out to the parents? How are they being informed of this program and the other programs?
Well, I'll speak to the CBITS program. They actually have a packet of information that is for the parents and for the screening when they did the school-wide screening, and it explains in Spanish and English what CBITS is, but it's a pretty thick packet. It talks about what participation would look like in a program like this. It explains how many sessions it is, if there was concerns, how would that be handled, if their student had some special concerns that came out of the participation. It goes into length in terms of consent, agreeing to allowing the student to participate. We met with the principals and teachers to make sure that if it's not impacting their learning, that we're pulling them out at a time that would not affect their academics. But there's quite a bit of paperwork and instructions that go home for the parents, as well as when they do their screening. Part of the screening is to sit down with the mom and dad or grandparents or whoever the parent or guardian is, and they explain the entire program before the student participates. And that's part of the intake session that they do. But other programs, for example, this dinosaur school that I was going to talk about, I send out the emails to the principals, as well as targeting certain populations. So if the program is for, like CBITS is for 10 to 15-year-olds, all the middle school students receive required information just for interest. For the dinosaur schools, we sent out all the information to the Head Start State preschools because it's a preschool program, as well as all of our special education and general education teachers and administrators who have preschool programs on their campus. So we try to get as much information out there. We do try and update our website that we have that has a lot of these GP programs on the website, so that as we know about information or programs that are coming into the district, we can get the information out as soon as possible.
I also have a question. Is the website linked to the district website for easy access and for the parents?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The Dinosaur School is a program that actually is for children ages 3 to 5. It's funded by First 5 grant, and the facilitators of this program is Victor Community Support Services. And this year, we had 2 classes of 12 students that graduated from the Dinosaur School. The program runs 2 hours for 14 weeks. And it just was a great success this year. For the graduation, it looks just like a pre-K Head Start graduation or a kindergarten graduation. The kids got dressed up and they got a certificate, and because it's a dinosaur school, they received a dinosaur stuffed animal. But what goes with that program is Incredible Years Parenting Program. So while the child is in the dinosaur school, the requirement is that a parent or guardian participates in the Incredible Years Parent Program. So they're learning about the same types of skills that they need to build and what strategies they can use as a caregiver to promote academic and social competencies and reduce problematic behaviors. And so we had a little graduation for the parents as well. They received their certificate. The class is offered in Spanish and English, depending on our needs. We just had, our first class graduated, we had it at the school readiness. Our second class, we had at the Ina Arbuckle Elementary campus, and so that class was in Spanish. And I'm telling you, we have so many parents that have said, when are you doing this class again? Because they really enjoyed it, and we've received a lot of good feedback. We did target some, sending out information. We did look at any students that are on a waiting list for Head Start State Preschool, and they may not have received a program. We tried to get all of those kids into this dinosaur school, and it's been a great program to have, so we're hoping to have them back next year as well. It really gets the kids used to participating in a school environment before kindergarten. And that program has many different pieces. The pieces that we had were the Child Dinosaur Treatment Program and then the Parenting School Readiness Program. They did offer some teacher classroom training programs that we hope to take advantage of next year as well. And another program that we have, which is called PCIT, or Parent-Child Interaction Therapy. This program is also an early intervention program for children ages 2 to 7 with some behavioral difficulties or concerns. Currently we have the mobile offices parked at Pacific Avenue. And if you saw this mobile unit, it's actually a beautiful office inside with toys. You wouldn't realize when you're inside the mobile unit that you're in a mobile office. It's really a nice unit. It serves students and families district-wide, and Family Services Association is the provider of this program. Oh, and I wanted to share, I thought I had another slide, but for PCIT, it's a really great program. They actually have the parents wear an earpiece, and while they're interacting with their child, you have licensed professionals and therapists who are viewing through a two-way mirror, and they're actually providing prompts and guidance so that the parent knows what to say and what strategies to use. And parents that have participated in this program in the past have really said it was life-changing. And again, they have bilingual therapists as well as English-only therapists, and they have, sometimes the kids run through the program and it's 6 months, but afterwards they do case management and they link them to different kinds of services and supports that parents may not be aware of. And so that program we are considering expanding and having at other school sites as well. Triple P parenting classes. This is a program that's provided by Riverside County Mental Health under the Set for Schools funding, and we've had them at various sites depending on need. And again, it's open to all interested parents and caregivers, and It's a parenting class, and they talk about all kinds of strategies to help parents support their children regardless of age. And again, it's a place where parents really get linked into lots of different groups and services that are happening within our community. Seeking Safety Program. This program is actually targeted for our adolescents that may have a history of trauma or stress, and they may be using substances or they're at risk for using substances because they're hanging out with maybe peers that are using drugs, and so that places them at risk. It's actually operated under a grant that's funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse through the Family Services Association is how we have this program. This year we've had it at all 3 comprehensive high schools, and the program has been full. And kids who administrators have told me that in the past would not come to a group or come to school on a regular basis have actually been, their attendance has been improving because they're coming to be in the support group. Oh, thought I had something else I wanted to share on Seeking Safety. We actually are going to, we talked with them, and they will be expanding next year to be at the Learning Center at Nueva Vista as well, because some of the students at the other sites we're trying to figure out their schedule so they can attend these groups. And Seeking Safety program, what's been great about the program, again, is we've had parents who want the program, but maybe not during the school day. They will take our students and place them in a Seeking Safety program that's in Riverside or the Moreno Valley area. And again, it's free. And so if we have parents that say, hey, I want that, but I want to keep the counseling outside of the school, they link our students up with groups. And this program has been very helpful for our students who've struggled with drug use on our campuses. El Sol Neighborhood Educational Center, they're right here in our community, and they support in English and Spanish expected mothers, whether they're teenage mothers or they're actually parents of our students who may not have the services that they need. They actually provide rides to medical providers at free of cost. They link families to mental health, financial, food, housing assistance programs, child care, domestic violence shelters, and substance abuse treatment programs. And this has really helped quite a few of our families. Everything's confidential. We just give them the flyer or referral source. And we've had families that were very thankful because they'll sit down with the family and help them with an SSI application or Medi-Cal application. And we've been happy that they've been responsive to our families. The Riverside Regional Medical Unit is actually a 40-foot-long clinic on wheels. The unit's equipped to handle drop-in care for non-emergency medical conditions, follow-up care, and basic lab tests for purposes of completing medical screening exams. The exams that our students need, the shots or immunizations. The medical unit has helped us with that free of charge. It's located right now at Ina Arbuckle. And like I was saying, they do preventive screenings, vaccinations, even chronic health conditions for adults, children, and family. And if they don't have insurance or can't pay, they'll assist our families. And I know that they've assisted some of our families that, you know, if they had stitches that needed to be removed, but the family couldn't afford to take them back to their regular medical insurance because of the copay, they just go ahead and treat and do what they need to do. So this is, again, open to all of our kids, not just Ina Arbuckle. It's where it's parked right now, but it's open to any families or students in our community.
How long is it at Ina? How long does it stay there?
You know what? If we find that right now they're really keeping them busy at Ina, but they're not opposed to moving, just like any of the other programs I talked about, based on need. So if we find that we want to move the medical unit, we can.
But that's not just for students at Ina, that's for the surrounding area. And how do we...
One of the reasons why Ina is a likely school is that we have a lot of families that don't have transportation
Right.
and they're able to walk there. So it pulls all of the families that are in that area, or it's within walking distance.
How do we inform those other parents in the area that don't send their kids to Ina that is there?
Well, one of the things that I've done is given the nurses teachers through email. There is the Borrega Health that we have also on the other side. So we tried to put this medical unit over at INA so that might help balance so families have access.
Borrega at Trough?
Yes, it's at Trough. And this medical unit was at Trough, a different day that Borrega was there, but we felt like if we moved it to INA, then there'd be more families that could reach the services. And they're really good at communicating with the principal or with us about, you know, we're really not having as many families as we like, and we can then do a flyer, make sure it gets into the backpack of the students of all the surrounding schools, so that we have more awareness that it's there. But it's definitely, we'll have the nurses who, you know, they're usually the ones that will find out about a student that is sick or not coming to school because they needed a treatment that they can't afford, and we're able to use some of these resources like this medical unit, which has been really great for us to get kids back, the treatment and get them back in school. And sometimes it is just informing families because they think, oh, there's probably a charge. And so we, you know, just sharing with them that it's absolutely free. The last program that I wanted to talk about was Families in Schools Together, FAST. And this program is an evening program for the entire family. And it's provided by Family Services Association. And their whole curriculum is to empower the parents to be that primary prevention agent for their child. So they talk about making sure the child is at school and is doing all the things that they should be doing. They talk about health and mental health. They have family-style meals. That encourages our families to come and participate. And it's definitely helping families with at-risk youth. Currently, we've had this program at Van Buren and Trough Street. And we just wrote a letter of support for the Grant to Grow for Family Services Association, hoping that it'll expand next year to a few other elementaries because there's been a couple of principals who heard about FAST and they'd like it to be at their school. So some of the principals, along with myself and Michelle, we've written some letters to help that grant grow in our area to show our need. And that program's been beneficial.
If I may make a comment on this program, if it's the same one that I remember attending a couple of years ago, don't they also have a graduation ceremony for the parents and families at the end of the, I think, 8-week period or whatever it is that that they attend? And if other schools are requesting to have it their size, I think it's an excellent idea because hearing the testimonials that we went to see, I think my colleague here also went to the presentation that evening. It seemed like a really good program that does benefit families and the students, and so I'm glad to hear that it potentially can be expanded to other schools.
Yeah, we're really excited that that's what the plan is. So when they get their grant in July, that is the hope that it'll expand to be a total of 5 of our elementary schools. And it may be that Van Buren and Trough, they've had it a few years, and it may be that it's 5 new elementary schools. It's been a great program, and again, I think that encouraging families to come with activities that the students would like to do, as well as having that family-style meal, it gives that opportunity to bring families together and strengthen the community, as well as that family itself. So that's a program that we also are excited to expand. And those are some of the programs that we brought in under the Jeep assistance programs. Thank you.
Questions for us?
Any other questions?
I do. Ms. Johnson or Ms. Cloak, these are fine programs. Like my colleague said, we attended the graduation of FAST, and there are many parents out there that are not aware of these programs. I mean, you got all these acronyms, and what would be the best way to reach them? Because number one, you said they think there's a cost to it. Number two, some feel intimidated asking. Number three, they let the kids go beyond a certain point and it's too late. How do we get this out there to them to know that it's there for them so that they come out of the shadows and partake of these programs?
One of the things I wanted to share is all of the programs have been full to capacity. So that's good news that we are using the programs. But also every meeting that we have, because Michelle has all of the special ed groups, the speech and language psychologists, the psychologists, the mental health counselors, the nurses, and the special ed teachers. She shares any of the programs that we have, and then myself working with the psychologist, we try, if we identify that there's needs, now the word is getting out because I get a lot of emails from teachers, bus drivers, from a lot of different staff about, hey, do you have something for this? And that's been really helpful because then we know what kind of programs to look for to bring in, as well as getting the word
But part
out.
of it is that because they are grant funded, we don't have an infinite access to them. So we've been trying to charm them into coming into Jurupa and settling in here to offer at a lot of schools. And as Amita mentioned, all of the programs that we've had this year have been full capacity. So while you're right that we're not touching every family that could benefit from it, we're touching all the spaces that we've got available for families. And what we try and do is to make sure that we're kind of keeping our ear to the ground about where the programs need to go. Because we know that we have some schools that have a higher level of need, or families that don't have access to other resources. So that's why you heard some schools happen over and over, because typically those are schools where there's a lot of families that don't have access to their own health care, that don't have access to mental health things, or they don't have a car to get to an appointment someplace far away. So it's kind of a little dance that she's been doing. And I gotta say, Amita has been fabulous, because she is the one that has really single-handedly made all of this happen. So I really hope that you appreciate how much she's done.
Well, I think one of the things I learned last year was, because I was figuring out why Albert and Riverside Unified, they would have the grants, the bigger grants, and I think it was last year when I realized that it was in July when all the RFPs come out in the grants, I started looking for the grants. So for the FAST program, for it to expand next year, I've been doing meetings, so I met with FSA and said, okay, you've had 2 of our schools, but we have a large district, and we really love this program, and so it was a letter of support. If I write a letter of support, would you be able to expand the program? And I think that that's the same with the dinosaur school. It has existed, but it's finding out who gets the grants and who's trying to get the grant, and not forgetting about Jurupa Valley. And I think it's just
And I think the other thing that she's done that has really helped support it is that if there's a program that's going to be starting, she makes sure that the room is there, that all the supplies that are needed are there, that kids are there, the parents have been contacted. She's done a lot of legwork to make sure that when the therapist comes, they're ready to use their time to actually do the therapy. And I think that has been a big feature in getting them to say, well, maybe we could expand a little more next year. And so that's kind of our goal, is that we want to every year expand a little bit more and tap some choices that maybe we haven't found yet.
Can I ask one more question? If this grant money dries up, is it possible to use LCFF funds to continue with them till we maybe find some other grant money, or a leprechaun that can help us?
Certainly, although our first bet would be to go for additional grant monies and that sort of thing. But yeah, a lot of things are open to us, yeah.
The good news is partnering with a lot of these different grant providers, the plan is for them to return. They've been very happy with working with teachers and administrators and everybody. I mean, some of them have done, I've just talked about some examples. They've done some trainings for our bus drivers, or just coming in and working with our staff. And so I think the plan is for most of these programs, the plan is for them to return next year as well.
And many of them have said that they decided to expand in our district. So I think we're on the right track. And you're right, Brian, we're not doing it as fast as we'd like to, but I think we're really making some inroads in providing services to all kids in the district.
Just a quick comment. I just want to thank both Ms. Johnson and Ms. Cloak. As you probably recall, about 4 years ago, our mental health programs were pretty much devastated in the district because we were just trying to keep people as much as possible employed more than anything. And working with an array of resources in the community and not many new resources in the district, they have just brought tremendous mental health services to our kids and to our community. And it certainly is one of the things we can address under LCFF. I'm thinking that there seems to be both nationally as well as locally, some renewed interest in providing mental health services because we're seeing the downside of it. So, but I just want to compliment both of you. You've done a tremendous job when we've had instances or issues or really some pretty serious issues come up at schools. Your teams have been there. They have been professional and compassionate, but not overly emotional. I don't know how to say it better because you don't want the people helping people to be falling apart. And they've held things together in some very serious situations. So thank you both.
Thank you, and thank you for providing us with the copies of the presentations so that we have those to refer back to. Next, we'll move on to report on the 100 Mile Club. Mr. Dabrowski.
So moving from mental health to physical health and fitness, the 100 Mile Club is racing right along, pardon the pun, but our open runs on Tuesday nights at Rubidoux and Wednesday nights at Jurupa Valley are continuing. We just have a few more weeks left until we wrap up for this year. But I'm excited to talk tonight about the Jurupa Valley 5K. The Jurupa Park and Recs Department and the city is once again having their 5K, and Jolene Hancock, the race director, is here tonight to speak with you a little bit about that. What they've done, and the reason this falls under the 100 Mile Club, is they're allowing any of our 100 Mile Club students to register online for free and participate in the race. So we're extremely excited about that, and she's here to speak with you.
Let's don't run right now. I sat too long. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Dabrowski, for that. I am here, as he mentioned, to just make you aware, but more importantly, to extend an invitation to you to come and be involved with the 3rd annual Jurupa Valley Community Run. The date is on May 31st, so it is after school is out, but it's a little bit closer, so hopefully we'll get good participation from the students. We have taken flyers and posters to all the sites before spring break, so the word is out on campus. We don't have the ability to send a flyer home with every single child, but we have one in every classroom. So we are hoping to spread the word and let families know that this event is so close right here in our city. We have also expanded the race to a 1 mile Kids Fun Run. So the kids can register and run their 1 mile. They can come with their shirts and run their 3 miles. And I think we really just wanted it to be more of a family event so that everyone could participate. The registration is open now. The link is on the park's website. I have some flyers I thought about. I think the Education Center is aware. We have already a team formed by people in this office, and that's exciting. And I know the sites are aware of it, but I'm not sure if there's any other personnel that might, in the school district, might not be aware of it. So I have a few flyers if I could leave. I don't know if transportation or the food services, any of those, if they're residents here, would be interested in this event. But we are excited. We are looking for runners. We're looking for walkers. We're looking for joggers. We're looking for kids. We're looking for old folks. We're looking for families. We're looking for volunteers. We're looking for sponsors. So about any avenue you want, we're looking for you, and have a place for you in our event. So I'm just excited. I appreciate the support of the school board. I appreciate the support of the Education Center, getting this up and running, and hopefully getting our families out and getting some good family exercise on May 31st. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sure. And we'll be sending phone messages home to all of our elementary families, making sure that everyone knows about this ability to participate. And we would love for any of you to join the Education Center team and run or walk with us.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Hancock, for coming out and reminding us all. Next, we have Williams Settlement Quarterly Uniform Complaint Report Summary. Mr. DeBrey.
We have 0 complaints.
Thank you. The presentation by TBWB Strategies on Community Outreach related to the district's facilities, technology, and career technical education. Mrs. Ford.
As the board had requested at our last meeting, we have Mr. Jared Borgen from TBWB Strategies here this evening to present information on the planned community outreach related to the facilities, technology, and the career technical education needs of the district. So.
Hi, members of the board. Jared Boygan with TBWB Strategies. Thanks very much for having me. I want to just explain a little bit about our program outline for the next 3 months or so. And as I think you know, the main goal of these community focus groups or presentations is constructive engagement with members of the community, letting them know facts and information about the schools and the school sites, and gathering feedback and listening to them and bringing all that information back to the board so the board can make informed decisions later in the year about some of the big issues that confront you. And in our work with other school districts on matters like this, I mean, one of the things that's always very challenging for school boards is that a lot of times the community of voters is very different from the community that you serve every day very intensely. There's some overlap, but there's a lot of folks in the community who are voters who are not engaged with the school sites on a daily basis. In fact, in most school districts, and yours is no exception, 3/4 or something like that of the likely voter is not parent or staff member at one of your school sites. So getting information to that group and hearing back from them and getting them to engage with some of your challenges and problems is never easy for school districts. It's just never easy. And so a program like this one can really help you engage those folks in some of your decision making and make sure that as you think about what some of your future decisions might be, you know you have had your ideas out in front of the community and that they've had a chance to react. So the way we've outlined the plan, we've already begun working with your staff to put together some informational materials. They would include a newsletter that would go to the entire community, both JUSD families as well as registered voters, with a tear-off return postcard and a survey component, so people can give some feedback that way. We'll put together a form on the website, district website, that will allow people to engage online if they choose to do that. And we'll put some materials together that are similar to the mailer materials, again working with your staff, to present some of the current facts and challenges on the ground for JUSD in the form of presentations, handouts, that sort of thing. And then, meanwhile, the school district, I know, is working on scheduling meetings, and this is kind of our early preliminary list. It's a pretty ambitious list, and we hope the district is able to complete most or all these meetings, but we know there's a broad cross-section of individuals in the community, and by hitting most of this list, we should be able to gather a large amount of information for the board from community members and some of their ideas. So in the months of May and June, begin to actually conduct those meetings. The presentation that staff will be using to conduct those meetings will be a structured conversation, and there'll be some moments in the discussion with the group where they'll be soliciting feedback and taking notes on some of what that feedback is. And some of that feedback would be in the range of, how many of you knew this before, show of hands type information, and some of it will be a little bit more qualitative. Here's a comment card, and please fill out your comments, and we'll consolidate all that information and present it so the board is able to review it yourselves at the conclusion of the program. And then, meanwhile, as these groups are going on, we'll be incorporating input from the groups while the district continues its long-term kind of look at facilities needs and planning. And one of the goals of a project like this is to make sure that as we talk about facility needs with the community, we're able to incorporate some of their high priorities in what you're doing. One example that we've seen in a lot of other districts is the need for career technical education these days is a very high priority for lots of folks, those who have children's schools, but those who don't as well. That's something that people see as very important these days. That's a theme that often comes up in other districts when we do work like this. So if, hypothetically that came up in your district as well, that'd be the sort of thing that we would encourage staff to, hey, you might want to think about incorporating some of this into some of your facilities planning as you proceed. In June, we've talked about actually doing a scientific voter survey that would allow us to take some of the qualitative information from the focus groups and send it out to the community in a statistically valid random sample of 400 likely voters and bring that information back. And then bring all of this information back to the board with a second mailer to the community that would invite them to come participate in the board meeting if they wanted to, in early July, where we'd be able to share the results of the focus groups, the results of the tear-off and mail-in survey, the results of the online survey, the results of the quantitative survey, the collection of comments and everything that's been received, so that the board would, in middle of summer, have a full sense of everything that staff has heard and learned throughout the course of the process. And then, excuse me 1 second, I'll just flip to the second page here. And then if the board, if the board wants to discuss anything in August relative to November of this year, that decision would have to be made prior to August 8th of this year. And if not, then the board could revisit that decision again in 2016, but not in 2015. So with that, I'm open for any questions, if it pleases the board.
I do have a
Mr.
question.
Mendez?
I'm sorry, thank you. Sorry, Madam President. In regard to the focus group meetings, how will those groups be selected and on what basis? And then what are the number of focus groups that you intend to meet with, and where will the meetings be planned to be taking place?
Right, I appreciate that. And let me clarify by saying these are not scientific focus groups the way that an outside research company might present them. There are absolutely things, market research type focus groups, things of that nature. In this case, the program that we're looking at is more of direct relationship development between the local school district and its constituents. And so it's not a question of scientifically selecting particular participants. This is more of an active community selection process. So the goal will be to actually have staff go to sites where active and engaged citizens are, and engage with them on their turf, kind of on their terms, and hear from them as we present to them, or as staff really presents to them. So this is really not about having a researcher in between the community and the agency. This is really a way of opening a line of communication and also increasing some transparency and allowing other people to engage in the discussion who maybe don't normally engage in the discussion.
So they're not separate group meetings, or focus group meetings, I guess. They're just the ones listed on the page here then.
These are the ones that we currently have envisioned, yes. And I think, again, depending on how well we're able to get them on the schedule and how well we're able to move through them, I think if there were other groups suggested, certainly we could consider adding them to the list, time permitting.
I guess I was just wondering also, just to cast a wider net, to allow an open invitation to people that would want to attend, a group at the local high school or local area school, whether elementary or otherwise, and then see if by response there would be a group enough that would be willing to meet at one of those sites where they would be interested in attending, and expand maybe the opportunity for people to be a part of the process.
I think that's an excellent idea. We could maybe put a couple of dates on the calendar that are almost sort of open invitation dates, and make that available to people. And then if people wanted to get themselves into a setting like that they'd be welcome. I think that's an excellent addition to our program. We'll make that adjustment. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one. Do you have any thoughts on, or will you research in your focus groups kind of tell you whether 2014 is a good year or 2016 would be better? There's new development happening. There will be some new residents maybe by November. There may not be many. So.
Yes, I think one of the things that we'll hope to pull out of this work is an indication for the board of a kind of recommendation for the board of what we think about 2014 and what we think the future might hold for 2016. Obviously, it's hard to look, far into the future. Crystal balls always get cloudier the further out you look, but certainly we hope to get both the qualitative feedback, what we hear from the community, what does the community think, where's the community's mind on some of these topics today, and if we think that shows, yes, 2014 is a favorable climate, receptive or not, or there's some tough questions to answer. And then from the scientific voter survey that I talked about that's currently scheduled for June, or that we recommend for June, that would be the statistically valid read on 2014. And in a survey environment like that, we're able to actually make a statistical analysis of the 2014 versus 2016 electorate. And so we'll have a couple of ways of trying to answer that question for you.
Going back to the focus group meetings, this is another idea that I heard at a conference, and the speaker suggested that they found that very helpful when they're actually launching their approach to attracting the community involvement into their local, local plan for the LCAP. And their strategy, one of the strategies they use to bring in people that typically you don't bring as you search out to cast the wider net to get as much people involved in the process possible is to ask schools, for example, the principals and the staff at the site, for them to select certain people that are actively involved at their site, but do not normally maybe participate in some of these other venues. And for them to then compile that list of those individuals that are looked up to in their local school community, and then have that as a group of invitees that they can also be a focus group then to also present the information, and that might be another avenue that we might want to explore.
I think that's another good suggestion, and one of the things we also hope to accomplish with the online availability of the survey and the tear-off mail-back survey is to make those surveys available as widely as possible at sites, so that even for those who don't come to meetings, and even for those who aren't able to engage in the focus groups, that they're able to at least participate via the survey and a comment card, and we can compile their comments as well. So we want to maximize as much participation as possible. And certainly I think the idea of asking principals to suggest, leadership people is a great idea. We can never, hear too much from those folks if we can get them engaged.
Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
My question is, I've got a couple questions. Number one, you're going to present to the community facility facts and needs. Okay, what facts? I guess what I'm getting at is during the last bond measure, we had individual administrators pointing up at a leaky ceiling. We had others speak about their son had to stand in line to use a urinal because they wanted more urinals at this site or that site. Our schools are in very good shape. They're old, they need reconstruction, but they're not run down, okay? So denigrating the sites, I have a real issue with that because they're in good condition. We just need to have them, we just need reconstruction. The other thing is the cost of this. Now, your fees, I think was $25,000. But you're looking at mail-outs. Is that additional? How many mail-outs are you contemplating?
It is additional, and we envision two. One in the early part of this program, really in the next couple of weeks, that would include a tear-off survey, as I mentioned. It's a perforated postcard. People can fill it out, send it back in. And then a second one in June that would allow people to learn some of the results of all the information gathering, the focus groups, the surveys, et cetera, and invite them to maybe come to a board meeting like this and hear the bulk of the results presented.
Also, again, I'm a big fan or an advocate of career tech education. I think we should go all in. And the last bond measure, it was an afterthought. Again, there's nothing on here about career tech. You mentioned it. How are you going to ask the public in your flyers or in your mail-outs What do you think of career tech? What do you think the school district should provide for the students? What type of career tech? How are you going to get that all out there? And what is that cost going to be?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'd also like to speak to your earlier point about not denigrating the sites, because I respect that point, and I think it's very important in terms of tone and manner and how we handle this kind of factual information process. So where we like to start the information presentation, the concepts, we like to start with students, not buildings. We like to start with how is the district doing, what are some facts about education, what's actually happening in the classroom, how are kids doing with graduation and matriculation and readiness for the world ahead, and their core mission as a school district. So we'll start with some of those, and we'll talk about some of the challenges of the 21st century. What does it take to get those kids ready for today? And a lot of folks have ideas about that, and we don't want to make it too technical for people, but we do want to let them know that we're thinking about it as a school district, and here's some of the challenges we face. And then when we start to talk about buildings, we can do it in the context of meeting student needs, which is what the point of, that's what the classrooms and the buildings are for anyway. So we'll lay that context and try and include those pieces. In terms of talking about the facilities themselves, I think we want to be very respectful of the work the Facilities Committee has done. I know Mr. Hansen was talking to me earlier about some of the work that committee has done, and that there's some photos that hopefully that committee has that, feel like accurate presentations of what's happening in the buildings without in any way, denigrating the buildings unnecessarily. I think that's a very important point. So we'll be trying to track very closely to the work that the Facilities Committee has done. And I think we will want to lay out not just the facilities themselves, but some of the programs that are facility dependent. And career tech education is probably chief among the kinds of programs that are really facility dependent. There's a lot of skills, especially high school students need to develop, that they can't develop without adequate labs and technology in their updated classrooms. That's a very facility dependent program. It's about learning, but it's about facility. And so it becomes, I think in some ways, it's a very good connection for talking about facilities and students at the same time. So my sense is career tech education will come up lots of ways in the materials and in the presentations, because it is very much on the minds of voters and community members today, nearly everywhere we work, which includes lots of other places in Riverside County. So I suspect that, it's going to come up a lot, and we'll certainly present it in lots of our materials as well. But as I said, starting with students and then kind of leading into facility, because I think that's really where the proper context is for kind of everything that you do as a school district, is really starting with the kids.
The other thing is on here, the purpose of this is to inform and to get feedback. But one of the most important purposes is to find out whether they would support a bond measure. Is that going to be addressed in any of the mail-outs?
Certainly, I think we've thought about mentioning that, but we haven't, I think, been given final direction by staff yet in terms of how directly, integral that is to the concept. I think certainly it's something we want to mention. I think in the presentations it would come up naturally. In the mail-outs, we can decide, how we want to present that, and I appreciate the input here. But it is something that the board will have to be deciding this year, or whether or not to pursue. And so certainly for the second mailer, I think it is something that we'll probably want to say explicitly, this is something the board is considering, and this is what it might look like after we've gathered lots of community feedback and input. The first mailer, it's really more about student needs, facility needs, and facility facts on the ground, so you can mention things, solutions like a potential facilities bond, but it's not really as much the focus in the early going in the information gathering. But it is something we want to say. You want to put the word to it so that people can react to the concept of a bond.
We need to get the reaction as soon as possible, because that's when nothing's free in life. They're going to have to realize that if they want these facilities improved, if they want career tech programs for their students, we've got to find a way to pay for it. Let's be realistic. We're not going to hoodwink anybody. This is how we're going to pay for it. Would you support a bond issue if it was brought before you to send your kids to career tech, or to educate them, to provide them a program where they don't have to take remedial math and English when they go to college? I mean, ask them. Don't hide it. I mean, and that's what we did the last time. The last thing, if I may, Paula, it was $25,000 for what amount of time?
It's $6,500 a month,
Okay.
and then we had additional funding in there for mailers.
Oh, that was, okay.
Yes.
That's all I wanted.
Trustee Schaefer,
Yes.
the reason it's not in there is because we haven't asked you that yet.
I know, we're doing this.
We are
we're
being
kinda-
we are being very cautious
I
and
know.
sensitive to the fact that the board should not be backed into a corner about whether you decide in August to have a bond or not. So the first emphasis was on providing information. And then as we move along, really with direction from you, the board, and that's something you can give us tonight or later. But I also want to go back to career tech, because I think there's probably no one in this room that disagrees with what you're saying. In fact, it's at the top of every one of our lists. The fact that it's not mentioned doesn't mean it's not there. It's something we have to do, and maybe that's because we all know we have to do it. We haven't said it enough, but it's part of our LCAP. It's part of what we're going to have to address for as long as the LCFF is in the way we do our planning in the district. So, again, one way or another, with or without a bond, we're going to have to provide career tech. I think the question is, and again, this wasn't so much detailed in this, because as we put the presentations together, it's going to really be, a big part is, I mean, it's a balance between education and asking. You know, we went through the same thing on the LCAP presentations. We had to educate the community, but at the same time, we want to know where the community stands. And I think one of the things we want to hear, without front-loading it, is what kinds of occupations would you like us to prepare your children for, or really the children of this community, and then start coming back. It's sort of a feedback loop with, well, you know, okay, we think horseshoeing sounds good, but there's not that many of them anymore, you know. We could train one who might, hey, I just picked, I don't know why I picked that, but there was a program at Hacienda La Puente Adult School on that several years ago. I think they had 100% placement at that time. It does pay well. It does pay very well. You can get kicked, though. One way or another, no, those are critical questions, and we do intend to move in that direction, but not without the board's really approval to start asking directly. So, as Mr. Boygan points out, that would be further on that where we would, again, educate. And again, I wanted to, and I think it's pretty clear here, but to say this is all informational. If and when you decide to put a bond on the election, then we all step back and we wear hats that mean we only talk about it in our free time. We don't use any school resources. So we will be very cautious, even as we poll voters, to say, again, what if not, we need, so will you? It's a fine line, so.
Any other questions? Ms. Johnson?
Yeah. Give me a moment. I have a senior moment.
Mr. Mendez?
Oh, yeah. Can you work closely with the board, and can we review what you are preparing to send out? And, I mean, without slowing the process down, even if it's maybe a special meeting or a special workshop or something? Because we need to know what's being sent to the residents, and we're going to be asked, I think, that the bond issue question will come up before, you know, we ever mention it.
We can do a couple of things. We can present it at board meetings as we move along. We can send documents in the Friday letter and ask for your feedback. And I think we don't want to always have to wait for the next meeting. And sometimes there'll be a lot between. When we may go out to, I don't know, the Save Our City group, and they may have some different, you know, ideas than our ELACs. I mean, I hope they do, but so part of it will be a little bit of a moving target based on the groups and what information, but yes, we can.
Mr. Mendez?
Just a comment. Going back to what Mr. Boygan said in regards to that, in some of these meetings that are scheduled, which seem to be rather extensive, and it's good to see that that they are. And that is that in the conversations, once all this information is presented at every forum, for people to question, well, what's the district doing about it? Well, these are only the resources that we have at this present time. Well, what else is available? Well, we have maybe some minimal state resources, some possible things that we can latch into or connect, partnership with something else. But basically, with a magnitude of what we have, we probably seriously may be considering or the district may be in need to consider a bond measure or something along that line. So I would think it's just a natural conversation once they see the need that is presented to them in our district.
I agree with that. I'm actually happy that you've all raised it tonight because I think that your comfort level with us using the word is very valuable to hear. I think that's important. I agree with you. One of the goals of a program like this, I call it, constructive transparency or proactive transparency. You're not waiting for people to come to your meetings. You're actually going and setting up meetings with them and sharing information with them directly. And so one of the things about a meeting like that is you do want to, I think, get to the, well, what's next? What are some of the possible next steps? How can we accomplish some of those things? And this is an idea that's been on the table. Certainly it's no secret that the district has tried this. And so, I think it would be appropriate, even in the early going, to mention it at the end of near the end of the presentations to say, okay, here's some facts, here's some needs, here's one of the possible solutions. And what do you think of that? So it's helpful, I think, for me to be here tonight and to hear this feedback from board members, and we'll be able to incorporate that into the materials we put together in the presentation.
Mr. Hernandez.
It's getting late. Anyway, I guess my frustration comes to that this is just a process, again, to educate the community and give them an opportunity to look at the bigger picture. I guess as far as funding mechanisms, the citizens will have to decide that, and we will have to decide if we're going to give them that right to vote on it. And just because board members sit here and say yes to whatever funding mechanisms that we feel that they may support, we can't say how they should vote or should not vote, but we can provide them with the opportunity to be educated, to understand that we need to provide educational environment for our kids that are for today and for tomorrow. And we can't keep living in a cave and drawing on the wall and thinking that we're going to keep progressing when there's tools out there that our young individuals need to utilize and to learn. That way they can get the jobs for tomorrow. And you're doing a good job, by the way. I like your strategy on how you're going to handle that.
Thank you. I think that's very important, and one of the benefits of a program like this is we're able to make that case and help people see some of the big picture that educators are grappling with.
Let me put my chalk down and come out of the cave.
Well, it's about time.
A simple explaining to them, I don't know how many mail-outs, I don't know how many, if you discuss that, if there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 mail-outs, 2 mail-outs. At least in one of them, or in both. Nothing in life is free. We would like to educate your child in career tech programs. Give us your input. What do you think they would like? It may, to me, front-loading it is, and, give them the facts, then in the second mailer, whatever. But don't put them in a cave. Let them out into the sunlight. Let them know that this is what the purpose of all of this is. And the bottom line, the end result will be a student of the district that either, when they step off that stage in their cap and gown, they're going to college, or they're ready for a job, starting their own business, or whatever. But we need your input. Please help us decide what we should do for your child. And that's, so let me go back in the cave.
I appreciate that. It's good feedback. Good direction.
Thank you, and thank you for coming tonight and presenting what's going to happen for us. And next we will move to the action session. Oh, no, we won't. We'll look at 2014 CSBA Delegate Assembly Election Runoff. Mr. Ducharme.
In your packet under 4G,
is some information from CSBA. Apparently, there was a tie and there's a runoff between Mr. Sawyer and Ms. Scott. And so I think this is, as a board, you have to vote and determine between the two of them. So
This is not a...
No.
Oh,
They're asking for
for a
you
vote.
to, yeah.
Between Mr. W. Raymond Sawyer and Susan Scott.
But it's reports and written communications.
Yeah, it probably should have been under action because they, yeah, because you have no later than April 30th. So
Okay.
it probably should have been under a different item.
Don't confuse me.
Sorry.
I confuse easily. Okay.
So if it's
Ready to
the
vote?
pleasure of the board, yeah.
What's the pleasure? Anybody have any preferences as to Mr. Sawyer or Ms. Scott? Or Memo, do you?
My preference was still Susan Scott, but I'd like to hear from trustee Mendez, his opinion.
I have no recommendation on this one. I don't particularly know personally either one of the candidates that's up for this position. And looking at their vita as was, in the, as it was listed in our agendas, I sort of go back and forth. On the one hand, Susan Scott's resume looks much more impressive and more articulate in general, the statements that she wrote than Mr. Raymond Sawyer. On the other hand, Mr. Sawyer is a business person, and sometimes having an outside perspective on some of these organizations is good to have a different voice. So I really have no recommendation for the board. I'm willing to see whatever else.
I had just noticed that I think the current incumbent has been there for 7 years, and my thinking was if there is if it would be appropriate to make a change, then either one. And I don't have a preference. I don't think really that much, but I do think maybe if someone's been on that board for 7 years, it's an opportunity to consider someone else. How would you feel?
Another good point, and I'm willing to go with that.
Just to clarify, the years on board, though, is how long they've been on their district board, not on the CSBA board. Okay, do I have a consensus?
I'll make a motion to...
A consensus is fine, or
Consensus.
motion, whatever you guys want to do. Okay, so is our consensus, Mrs. Scott? Mr. Hernandez? All right, with 5 head shakes, we will please submit Mrs. Scott as our nominee, or our vote. Thank you. Are there any other administrative reports or written communications? Thank you. And next, we'll move on to the action session and approve routine action items by consent, items A 1 through 13.
Move for approval.
Have a motion to approve by Mr. Mendez. A second by Mr. Schaefer. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez? Yes. Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Motion passes 5-0. Item B, we do have Mr. Rotten. Mr. Dabrowski, would you like, is it one particular course or?
Just the geography course, actually, yeah.
Okay, do you want to, go ahead and come on up, Mr. Rotten.
Thank you, board members, for your patience tonight. It's been kind of a long night. Wasn't expecting that when I showed up. Mr. Dabrowski brought up that in a few days we're going to be going through, or the high schools will be going through the A through G audit, and I think that's wonderful. I'm glad that we're doing that. I think it's a great thing for our district. And what kind of concerns me about the geography course that's in the list there is it is not an A through G eligible course. And as long as it remains as it is, which is as a preparatory course for AP World History, then I'm fine with it. My concern is, if you look back over the last 10 years of our district, this happened with geophysical science on the science end. It started off as a recommended course, then it became a more required course at one high school, to the point where it's an automatically enrolled course for all of my 8th graders now. It's not an A through G eligible course. I understand the reasoning behind having the geography course. It's because AP World History is really, really hard, and we want to give those kids a chance to have that extra preparation time. But I feel like there's a big risk that it's just going to become a gateway for a lot of our kids that are trying to get into that AP World History course, especially with our avid kids whose 9th grade schedule won't have room for a geography course, and a 10th grade schedule barely has room for world history as it is. So I would just encourage you to think about that. I'm not saying that the course is wrong or anything like that, but just be aware, and I don't know what kind of direction can go into saying, this is a preparatory course, it's a suggested course, it's not a required course, which is how it is currently written. And as long as it stays that way, then I think things are good. So, thank you.
Thank you for voicing your concerns. Mr. Jabrowski.
All right. Let me start out by saying I agree 100% with what Kevin said. And it is not designed to be a prerequisite course, and the U.S. History, AP U.S. History course that he's talking about, the prerequisite is not listed as this course, and so to change that would require a change in the high school course guide. So you would be advised of and asked to approve that before that would happen, and it's not the intent of this course. So we have these 3 courses. They're existing courses that we have as regular economics, regular U.S. history, regular world geography, and the teachers that brought forth the idea for the courses are teachers who are looking for, like Kevin mentioned, some preparatory work for the AP class, which is very difficult, and also B, a level of course, an increased level of rigor course in all 3 courses for students who may not have room in their schedule for an additional AP course, or students who may just not be ready to take an AP course but are committed enough that the teachers believe they could use the additional rigor of a challenging honors course that might act as a lead-in to the world of AP, or just challenge students who may not be ready for an AP course. So that's why we offer them up today. We're asking that we approve those courses today so that they can become a part of our high school course guide. That's not to say they will automatically be offered at all schools. Each year the administration looks at the course offerings, looks at how many kids may be appropriate for that course or may be interested in taking that course, but it gives them the option by having that as a part of the guide.
So they could be offered at only one high school?
Yes.
Okay. All of these are honors electives, so to speak?
They're honors social studies courses.
Okay. The titles, they sound like they're very interesting courses, and I am for honors classes. One thing that does concern me is for students who are preparing for college to not fill their schedules up with classes they won't need for college. I mean, it's really difficult especially in your high school years, to carry a load of college prep classes that college admissions administrators will be looking at what courses you've taken and put a value on what you've taken, and you're going to be compared with other applicants who may have taken stiffer courses than you have. I think honors are an alternative to AP, but if they're not, and I don't know if all 3 of these are, if they're not college accepted as college prep classes, I would think that would be an issue.
Well, and rather than consider them an alternative to AP, I would say consider them as an alternative to the regular class, regular economics, because it would be, the thinking was, and this originally started at Rubidoux High School, the thinking was that we have students that are taking regular economics who could benefit from an honors course. So it would then up the rigor and make them increasingly competitive. And U.S. history does fall under the A requirement, so it's really the geography course that Mr. Roughton mentioned that does not, but it serves a purpose because it can prepare students to be successful. Those that do have room in their schedule and do choose to take it, to be better prepared to take an AP class the next year.
If I may ask a couple of general questions. Generally speaking, what's the purpose of developing and offering courses to our curriculum in the first place? And secondly, how are these courses looked at in light of how they contribute to the achievement and preparation of our students in general as we consider courses that come before us like this for approval?
Well, the thinking in terms of offering courses in general is to expand the offerings that we have and to challenge our students so that they're better prepared when they graduate. And essentially, in terms of the honors courses, it's the exact same thinking, that we have students who could be challenged by taking an honors course that is more difficult and rigorous than a standard economics course or any of the three, and that we want to give them that opportunity to be challenged if they would like to.
And the course that does meet the requirements for the A through G requirements, the honors economics.
It's honors world geography.
Does the honors world geography also meet the A through?
No, honors world geography is not an A through G course.
Okay, I was looking also at the honors economics, though. That does meet the A through G requirements, though, right?
I believe it does.
It's listed on here. It's weighted A.
It's a graduation.
Graduation
All our
requirement?
students take economics.
Does it meet the A through G requirements as well? I don't believe so.
I would have to do some research to answer that question.
A through G on the A requirement requires 1 year of world history and 1 year of U.S. history. So economics technically doesn't count, but like you said, it is a high school requirement anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Going back then to the honors world geography. So this would be basically a preparatory class then for those that are looking at taking AP world history then?
Correct. Although it's not a prerequisite course, so it's not a requirement, but it is a preparatory course for students who may wish to do that.
And it's listed as a full year course. Was it ever considered to be maybe a semester course? Would that be helpful enough, provide enough background information and support for students to be of value?
I wasn't in the initial discussions with the teachers as they developed the course, so I couldn't say whether that was a part of the discussion or not. I know that it was brought forth to us first at Ed Services and also to Instructional Council as a year-long course.
And the reason I was asking again is, particularly in the freshman year, the room in student schedules. Now, I think it'll be a valuable course. It will help some of those students be better prepared because those exams are pretty rigorous, and if they can be better prepared for those, then the greater our success rate, then the better the program is overall for our students. I don't know enough about how the course would be structured, even just looking at the list here. It looks like a rather extensive list of areas and topics to be covered, so I'm not sure whether it could be condensed into a one-semester course, but the time element is the only concern that I would have. Otherwise, I think that the course seems to be valuable in promoting the student performance in our schools.
I'm wondering if it couldn't or shouldn't have been brought to us after the A through G audit that you plan to do in May. What I'm thinking is, will we get in a situation where, okay, we have all of these classes to offer and we can't offer something else that might qualify under college prep or career tech, for example. And I also have another comment, but if you wish to comment on that.
Yeah, let me real quick answer that. Think of the course guide as a menu. I mean, whether we have this additional course on the menu or not, it doesn't limit our ability to offer a different course. And just as using this as an example, we also have AP Human Geography that you approved, or it would just begun this year, and that course is also an alternative, challenging, rigorous option. It's a year-long AP course that gives you semester AP credit, college credit, if you pass the test. So now we'll have two additional options, but whether we offer them or not, it doesn't limit us, because we can choose to offer what's most appropriate based on all the things that are on the menu.
And could they be offered in summer school, for example? If a student says, okay, I think I'm going to have a full load in the fall, could they take something? I mean, could they be offered in summer school?
Theoretically, any course we have could be offered in summer school. That's not to say, I mean, currently our summer school offerings have been more focused on things like credit recovery. Our next step may be validation for courses where a student maybe got a D in an A through G course and needs to validate and up that grade. Sometimes it's courses like health or things that students need to get out of the way so that they can take those A through G courses. But any course that we have could conceivably be offered during summer.
The other thing I thought about was the economics and, let me think. I think it was the world geography could be offered together in the same year if one semester, one another semester. Is that possible? I mean, have you chosen the structure of the classes and the books and all of that?
Well, the geography course is a year course, so it couldn't be offered concurrently with economics.
A 2-semester.
Yeah, and economics is typically offered in 12th grade. So, and the geography course is something we're looking at for 9th graders. So it's aimed at a whole different group of students.
Okay. Well, the reason why I said that and is that I was reading the description, and the world geography seemed to me to be more like World Geography. Honors World Geography is a college preparatory course for 10th grade AP World History. The course is covered conceptually and explores topics such as physical geography, human geography, change, political geography, economics, and globalization. The course will include lecture, note-taking, independent practice, group projects, cooperative learning, student-led projects, document-based question analysis, essay and short writing assignments. And then the economics is honors economics. Microeconomics coverage includes economics of households, business firms, and markets, consumer behavior and the demand for commodities, production costs and the supply of commodities, price determination, competition, and monopoly, efficiency of resource allocation, and then it has governmental regulation, which is very prominent for businesses and manufacturing, etc. Then it has income distribution and poverty. Is that a part of economics? Income distribution and poverty. Okay. So, and then when I read the Honors United States History, now see, both of those to me sounded like economics courses.
They're actually very, very different courses, and they have different texts, and they're existing courses that we already have with existing texts that we already have that they'll be using, and where they'll be creating a more rigorous honors version of that course.
Now then, I went down to Honors United States History. The course will primarily focus on the founding of the United States through the present day. Included in the course is an overview and political analysis of America's continual search for its appropriate role in the world. The course examines the assumptions, theories, and concepts that have shaped and continue to influence American policies domestically and in the international arena. Students approach their study of United States affairs by the use of contemporary analytic methods and investigative techniques of the social sciences and the historical, cultural, and philosophical context in which events have occurred. This course also includes components that satisfy the Common Core state standards in history and social studies. Skills development is enhanced with a concentration on critical thinking, writing, and developing the ability to reason and experiment with the solutions to issues that challenge citizens in a democratic society. It sounds a little bit to me as a political worldview comes to mind, and to say that the United States is a democratic society. United States is a democratic republic, which we don't often hear about. Democratic republic is different in that we have a free market economy. We're not a democratic society, which can actually be an adjective for a communist society. So those are my thoughts, however you wish to take them. But those are some of the issues I have with the courses. So, you know how I always want to see the textbooks. I will want to see the textbooks. And I'm very interested. I think they're very interesting classes. I'm not sure they're appropriate for high school, but those are my thinking.
Well, they're existing courses with an existing text, so we won't be bringing a textbook for the board to adopt. We already have that textbook, and we already have that U.S. history course. This is just a more challenging version of that course. So it's not changing the specifics of the U.S. history content. It's changing the depth and the rigor at which the teacher goes into that content.
Just quickly, I don't think it was our intent to be coy in any way with words. I think this was generated essentially by teachers who were looking at course objectives, and the phrase democratic society is lowercase, and I think it really just refers to a society that is a democracy as opposed to, you know, communism is an economic, so is capitalism, and neither one are actually mentioned here. I think if any was, it was probably going to be capitalism would be part of it. I also want to reiterate that these courses are courses that will not necessarily be offered. They'll be offered at schools where they can find the appropriate teacher and the course load, and they have the number of students that want to take them. We've often in the past had just two polar opposites with honors courses, where they're over-enrolled or where they're under-enrolled. So part of it would really depend on, when you approve the course, you're allowing the school to offer it.
I understand. I think that, I don't know, I think the summary of the descriptions of the courses were not necessarily specific, possibly, of what will actually be taught, but maybe taken from. Some of it sounds like it came out of Common Core quotes.
Oh, well, let me sort of speak to the Common Core connection, because what that is it satisfies or it addresses the literacy standards for the content area, because there are no Common Core history and social studies standards. What there are is, in the English standards, ELA standards, literacy standards for the literate, students' ability to read and write in technical subjects. So that's how it satisfies the Common Core. And so anytime we bring a course to you that is not math or language arts, there will be a connection to how students are being challenged with literacy in any course that we bring. But it's not a Common Core history course. It's just, it addresses those language arts Common Core standards.
Mr. Hernandez.
Mr. Dabrowski.
Yes, sir.
What is your job?
I believe my job title is Assistant Superintendent of Education Services.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
What do you do?
Oh man, I do a lot of things.
Yeah. Now, I guess my concern is that you went to teachers and they recommended this course, did they not?
Yes.
You had a committee?
Yes.
How many people were on that committee?
There was a committee of teachers who recommended the course, and I don't have the number in my head.
Okay.
Then it went to the principals of the 3 high schools to advise all of the schools about the course, and they had to sign off on the idea was a good idea.
So you're saying maybe about 20 people were involved in deciding this to bring it forward?
Actually, there's more.
Yeah.
Then they came to the Ed Services Directors Committee, which is a group of 8 to 10 of Ed Services staff, and had to convince us. And there were 3 teachers from Rubidoux that came to do that, as well as the assistant principal, Mr. Wandry. And then once we approved it, they went to the Instructional Council, which there are 24 teachers on that committee, and those teachers from Rubidoux presented to that group, and then they had to approve the bringing it forth to you. So it's probably more like 40 people have been involved before it gets to you.
So you had 40 people look at this and they approved it?
Yes.
And I guess my concern is that if it's a course that educators want to see go forward and it's an opportunity for our kids to be challenged just a little bit more to be ready for college, then I guess it's a benefit to our young people to have this. Is that not true?
That's how we see it, yes.
Okay, then. And with that, Madam Chairman, let me make a motion to go ahead and approve the new honors courses.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and since everybody else has chimed in, I want to chime in. I think we have a broad base of students that have broad interests. I think as many courses as we can put out there for them to have a choice from is important, because if kids aren't interested in what they're learning, then they're not going to want to learn. So I think it's great that the teachers have come up with this, and we need to have more choices for the kids, because so many times you've got 5 courses to fill plus PE, and everything is dictated what you have, so the kids don't have any choice. And these are courses that they still have to have, but it gives them a variety to choose from and at what level they're going to get.
Madam President?
Yes, sir.
Last comment.
No.
Just to follow up on Mr. Hernandez's question, the last group that you mentioned, the Instructional Council, which is the last body that it goes to right before it comes to the board.
Correct.
That body consists of a teacher representative from each one of the schools in the district, correct?
Correct.
So teacher representation is, that's the last stage that this process goes through?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston? Abstain. Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0-1. Item C, approve Head Start eligibility recruitment selection. Have a motion from Mr. Schaefer, a second from Mr. Hernandez. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez? Yes. Trustee Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item D, approve Head Start budget and grant application for school year 2014-2015.
Make motion to approve item D.
Have a motion from Mr. Schaefer, a second from Mr. Mendez. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item E, approve Head Start goals and objectives for 2014-2015.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Mendez. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez? Yes. Trustee Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item F, approve Head Start roadmap for 2014-2015.
Move for approval.
Have a motion by Mr. Mendez and a second by Mr. Schaefer. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Motion passes 5-0. Item G, approve Head Start self-assessment report and corrective action plan.
Move for approval.
Have a motion by Mr. Mendez, second by Mr. Schaefer. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item H, approve purchase of audiovisual equipment for Patriot High School. Mrs. Ford.
Make a motion to approve item H.
Second?
Have a motion from Mr. Schaefer and a second from Mr. Mendez. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston?
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item I, award of bid number 13-14-12MO, carpet and tile services district-wide. Mrs. Ford.
Make a motion to approve item I with a question.
Same here. Same question.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Mendez. Mr. Schaefer, question.
Well, I don't know, mine's a simple one. Just a question on the bidder number 2, I guess, the one that 187,000 that deemed non-responsive. What was the reason for that?
The bidder left out didn't acknowledge the addendum to the bid, so left out a portion of the bid and also did not complete the bid on the appropriate bid forms and basically left off portions of the bid.
And they're not allowed to go back and rework it once they submit it?
No, once that happens, if we were to allow them to go back and resubmit, then we would be in violation
We don't want to
of public, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schaefer?
I always wanted to ask this question, and I guess I will after 4 years. The lowest bidder usually gets the bid, but as far as the quality and durability of the product that they're using, how does that compare to?
Tell me if I'm wrong. In the bid package itself, we actually identify like the quality of the product and what the product needs to be, so that you're bidding like for like product.
One even follow-up on that. Usually bids say the same or equal, but they have to submit something. We just don't take their word for it that this is as good as DuPont or whatever kind of carpet. It has to meet the same standards and right down to the spec.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer?
Motion passes 5-0. Item J, adopt resolution number 2014-44, the authorization to encumber funds for the following fiscal year. Mrs. Ford.
Make a motion to approve item J, adopt resolution number 2014-44, authorization to encumber funds for the following fiscal year.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Hernandez. Questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston?
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item K, adopt resolution number 2014-45, year-end budget transfers revisions. Have a motion by Mr. Mendez, a second by Mrs. Johnston. Questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston?
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer?
Motion passes 5-0. Item L, approve at first reading new board policy 4301, administrative staff organization. Mr. Ducharme.
Thank you, President Schmidt.
Motion to approve new board policy 4301.
Have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Hernandez.
I have a question. The agenda says the board should decide which option they prefer in the event of a tie vote. And as I looked at the policy, we don't really seem to have an option, so I don't know if I misinterpreted this or, I'll approve it. Where it says, I'm sorry, the middle paragraph there.
Ron L.
L.
I'm sorry.
It's late, let's go home.
All right, any questions or comments on item L?
Oh.
Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item M, approve at a first reading revised board bylaw 9220 governing board elections. Mr. Duchamp.
So anticipating that you might ask the same question.
I don't know, it's probably a stupid one.
Well, no, in the context, on page 5 of M, there are 2 options, and you do need to decide that, and I apologize if I looked over that in the agenda, but, so I can read each one. Option 1 is before each election, the board shall establish whether a potential tie is to be resolved by a lot or with a runoff election. And then after the election, the tie is, that's option 1. Option 2, whenever a tie makes it impossible to determine the winner of 2 or more candidates, the board shall immediately notify the votes and shall determine it by lot. So,
I'm awake again, I remember that now.
okay, so the board should indicate its choice with the motion. Oh, wait a second. No. It's before each election they have to make the determination.
What is the time frame that the board has to make that decision? It says before each election, when, you know.
It would probably be best to pick an option.
Pick it now.
Yeah. Rather than, otherwise you'd be doing this for each and every election.
That's the way I sort of interpret it now that I'm.
The section that talks about whether to choose in a runoff with a tie, whether to choose by lot or another election, is that correct?
Right. Option 1 is the board at that time, and that's, board shall determine the potential ties to be resolved with the runoff election or by lot under option 1. Option 2 is basically by lot. Option 3 is a runoff election. So, in other words, your choices are A and B or A or B. So my recommendation is A or B so that you don't continually have to make the decision.
Right, so option, if we chose option 1, then each election, if there was a tie, we would have to decide which way we wanted it to, the tie to be broken. If we choose option 2 now, then it would always be by lot. And if we choose option 3, it would always be by a runoff election.
Has there ever been a tie?
No, not that I know of, and sometimes ties are even decided by coin toss. My recommendation, and this is purely fiscal, is that runoff elections are expensive and that to predetermine that it'll be done by lot is about as fair as it's going to be. It saves you the money and the taxpayer the money of another election, and because it's scheduled as a special election, which are more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thinking that I had when I first was lucid.
Yeah.
Because of the cost.
Could you explain to those that don't understand what lot means?
Pull it.
Straw.
Yeah.
You pull the name, whichever name comes out, that's.
Basically, the short,
Congratulations.
either the short straw or it would have, a legal lot.
Who pulls it?
2 tags, 1 winner, 1 loser.
Do you have to roll up your sleeves before you pull it?
Member of the audience. Denise, she's the fairest person.
Right, there
Not
you go.
elected.
That's right. Okay.
So do I have a
You're ready to-
motion on item M?
I'll make a motion to go with option number 3. I'm sorry.
That's a runoff
No, sorry,
election.
the one by lot.
By option 2.
Yes.
Okay, have a motion by Mr. Mendez to approve at first reading revised board law 9220 using option 2. And we have a second by Mr. Schaefer. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item N, adopted a first reading, renumbered Board Policy 4156.2, awards and recognition. Mr. Ducharme.
Move for approval.
Have a motion by Mr. Mendez, a second by Mr. Schaefer. Questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez? Trustee Johnston?
Motion passes 5-0. Item O, adopted a second reading, revised Board Bylaw 9010, public statements. Mr. Ducharme.
Move for approval.
Have a motion by Mr. Mendez and a second by Mr. Schaefer. Questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez? Yes. Trustee Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item P, act on student discipline cases. Expulsion case agreement and stipulation, we have one, case 14-071.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Mendez, a second by Mr. Schaefer. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Motion passes 5-0. Expulsion, suspended expulsion cases, agreement and stipulation, we have two, case 14-069 and 14-073.
Move for approval.
Have a motion by Mr. Mendez, a second by Mr. Hernandez. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Suspended expulsion cases, agreement and stipulation, we have four, 14-063, 14-065, 14-068, and 14-072.
Move for approval.
Have a motion by Mr. Mendez,
Second.
a second by Mr. Schaefer. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item Q, approve personnel matters, approve personnel report number 16. Mrs. Elzig.
Administration recommends approval of Personnel Report Number 16 as printed.
Have a motion by Mr. Hernandez.
Second.
A second by Mr. Mendez. Roll call vote, please.
President Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Mendez?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez? Yes. Trustee Johnston? Yes. Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Item R, board member comments and committee reports. Mr. Hernandez.
Well, thank you for starting with me.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. I guess first of all, I want to just give a couple of comments. First of all, those young people, those young women that were here earlier, it took a lot of courage for them to come up and make statement of some of their concerns. Very emotional, and I appreciate what they've did. Second, the union, with all the things that are happening, and some comments were made about administration by individuals, and I at the beginning, before I even came on the board, that's what was some of my thoughts until I started to really dig into the finances and see how many jobs were saved. And everybody sacrificed, and the teachers sacrificed quite a bit for other teachers. And I think the thing is that we're one of the districts that didn't lose a lot of jobs because of it. And I can tell you this, is that being in business and going through a recession, 4 of them, over 35 years of being in business, I've had to cut people and do things and to survive. But yet the district was thoughtful enough not to do that to a lot of people that had families. And again, I am proud, first of all, of the teachers union for what they did. They sacrificed. But also doubly proud for administration for being compassionate enough to try to keep everybody working. And even though some people don't like the way it happened, I think the thing is that we have to realize that if we don't come together, it's going to be a hard fight. It's going to be an impasse. It's going to be everything that we didn't dream about. But yet, again, I just appreciate the teachers and I appreciate administration for what they did, and I'm just going to let it go at that. Thank you.
Mrs. Johnston.
I also think that didn't administration do furloughs? I think our superintendent did furloughs during that time also. And so everybody felt the pain. And I do think that the union members need to get the facts, and they need to know that we're trying to support everybody. So you have to sit here and take the comments and listen and try to be fair, and I think we do that. The other issue, I felt blasted about the softball issue and the fact that there's been complaints about this coach for a number of years, and I do hope that there will be an independent view of what's been going on, that there's some sort of resolution to this that satisfies parents and administration. It really is a difficult thing to sit here and have parents scream at you and you don't know anything about the situation. Also to have young girls, and a number of them, it's not just one person, express how they've been talked to. And I do know my son played sports, my girls did some also, and I know that the style of some coaches is to scream and carry on to get to instill fear to get performance, and I don't think it works, and I don't think it's appropriate, and I've never liked it, especially foul language or screaming in somebody's face and those kind of issues. So if those things are true, it's appalling, and it shouldn't be tolerated. My third thing is on the classes and the courses. I didn't feel I had enough information about them. I didn't care for the descriptions, complete descriptions. I'm not in favor of politically motivated courses. I think the courses, maybe the descriptions weren't entirely accurate, as we don't really have a shape out of the class itself, and we don't have chosen books. But I just want my feelings made known that I expect us to have classes that are factual and they're not propaganda, and the students, have whatever their opinion is, have the freedom to express their opinion in their writings and not be criticized. And let's see. The third thing is I would request a short report of how the process does work. I understand there's 24 teachers in that council, and I think it would be just informative to the board to list who they are, what their subtopics, what topics of their expertise is, and the whole process. Obviously there's no board member input at the end of it. So yes, there's a lot of professionals involved, but guess who it gets the flack or gets the questions, or we're responsible. So I think we should be responsible in how we choose classes that are to be taught and what the content is. And I think that I have issues about what the content is. For the most part, the content sounded really good, but there were a couple of statements in there that I didn't care for it. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
I'd like to again congratulate all the best of the best for the year. It runs a full gamut: clerks, typists, custodians, administrators, assistant superintendent of education even. So it runs a full gamut, and they are the best of the best. As far as the issue with the coach, it will be thoroughly investigated. It's like a festering wound that we have to lance it and see what's there. It is upsetting to see these students, especially the female students, react in the way they do. They should not have to. As far as female players meeting with all male coaches, there's something wrong there. We have to look into that. There should be a female there also. I don't know if there is. I don't know. We'll have to discuss that. But it will be thoroughly investigated, and we will come to a resolution on that. As far as the teachers and the administrators on the contract, it's being done in a civil manner, in a respectful manner, and I'm sure we will come to a resolution on it. So let me get my piece of chalk and go back in the cave.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to commend the staff at both Rudo High School and Rivercrest for their successful WASC accreditation visits. Those are pretty rigorous, and it's really rewarding and to get the type of report that both of those received, and particularly for Rivercrest being their initial accreditation in their existence. So congratulations to both of those schools. Secondly, I attended the DLAC meeting last week, and the board received the minutes of that meeting. So the only comments I'd like to take a moment to make at this time first of all, that I continue to be impressed with the attendance from parents throughout the district at these meetings. The meeting was held at Jurupa Valley High School. That library there was completely filled with parents, and it was just so fabulous to see that much parent interest and participation. Again, my experience over the years in many districts has been that they always say, we can't parents to come to the meetings, and I say, well, we're doing something right, I guess, because we don't, that's not a problem that we have in our district. The second thing is that, again, our staff shines when they do presentations to inform the parents, and maybe that's one of the reasons why parents feel so comfortable, being there. All the staff that presented the topics there that are in your minutes, they're just done a fabulous job in presenting that information. And then it's an enlightening thing for me over the years since my time in the district. Our enrollment has increased so dramatically in terms of English learners here in our district. In the report that was presented to us, it was indicated that we have 4 schools in our district that are at 50% or above English learners. I mean, that to me just sort of blew me away. It's just a phenomenal growth over the last, decade or so. Then secondly, I'd like to compliment the staff, and Michelle, and who is her co-presenter? Carmen, yes. I mean that their presentation was very informative. I was really impressed with the number of programs that are available to our students and the success that they're having and the need that exists for them out there. And I think that one of the byproducts, in addition to dealing with present situations in the students' lives and homes and so forth, is that hopefully that this also turns out to be preventative measures that will prevent these students from growing up in our society that maybe cause some damage or harm to others, as we've seen so many times in recent past. And then the last comment is just that I concur with Ms. Johnston that, and the way I think about it is also with the comments by the parents and the students in regards to the coach. And that is that, yes, ultimately, we do have an obligation as a board regardless of what happens in this district and a responsibility. And so we need to ask questions. We need to be critical about that. And so our intent, at least mine, I'm sure Bobby's as well, to not speaking for him, but I'm making that assumption, is that our intent is not to, convey that a board member shouldn't question or doesn't have a right to state their opinions or how they feel. I think we've grown as a board to be able to accept that and appreciate those comments because they are valuable. And likewise then, linking this to the presentations that we had this evening, in terms of the responsibility as a board, yes, we ultimately hold responsibility for what happens in our district, just like we hold the responsibility for courses that are approved and everything else that happens in our district. And so anytime that any allegations are brought before the board, I know that my colleagues and I take them seriously. And I know that this will be investigated and that we will be looking for a report as to the outcome of this and put closure to this aspect in our district.
Thank you for each of your comments, and I too appreciate the girls that came out tonight and the parents. Many of them made statements that they had made contact at the school level and did not get any follow-up and feedback, and I would just comment that if anybody that has a concern, and the first step is to contact the school itself. If nothing you feel is happening, then it's to contact the district and work your way up the chain of command. And sometimes maybe our answer we are getting isn't what we want to hear, but it is an answer. I do know that everyone on staff, administration, heard what was said tonight and will be sure to follow up and make sure that any and all allegations are looked into. There was also another comment made about administration and us as a board not caring about the teachers and the CSEA and staff and not wanting to give money to them that was well-deserved. So just for the record, because I know that although those people are not here now, that they usually view the recording, I would like to quickly read the tentative agreement for both CSEA and NEAJ. For CSEA, it's a 3% increase to the salary schedule effective July 1st, a 2.5 increase, and a new step F added to the salary schedule, and those employees on step E will move to step F effective July 1st. An $8,565 health and welfare allowance, a $700 cash distribution from the classified health and welfare pool, and the present Me Too for salary, health, and welfare remains in effect. And it's also adding hours to 16 elementary media center clerk positions, elementary media center clerks at Nueva Vista. 5 technician positions are increasing in hours, 79 instructional aid positions are increasing in hours, and a career center clerk at RHS is being increased, as well as making sure that each school has a healthcare aide on campus. For NEAJ Jurupa, it's a 3% increase. We offered through negotiations between the union and the district, and I want to thank each person that was on that negotiations team. I know a lot of thought and preparation was taken into this. Even though the teachers chose not to ratify it, it was a 3% increase on the salary schedule effective July 1st, a 3% increase on the health and welfare benefit allowance from $6,167 to $8,565, an increase on the salary schedule of 3% effective July 1st, 2014 to modify the current collective bargaining agreement and to add an additional 23 minutes to the certificated unit member workday that with the time to provide members with prep time. Established a qualification ratio of 1.03 for the positions of teacher on special assignment and nurse coordinator, an increase to the qualification ratio of counselor middle school, speech and language pathologist, counselor high school, guidance coordinator, mental health counselor, psychologist, behavior specialist, and program specialist by 1%, and a one-time increase of 1.2% to modify the current collective bargaining agreement and extend the certificated work years in 2014 and 15 by 2 days for the purpose of attending mandatory staff development for implementing the Common Core standards. And this represented a 10% compensation package, including increases to the salary and health and welfare. And with that, thank you all for coming out and for your comments, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. We need to go back to closed session, wrap it up real quick, and then I am the only one that needs to come out and report. All right, we are back from closed session. There's nothing to report out. Meeting is adjourned at 9:30.